Right. This is Skype, our radio and TV services studios, West Yorkshire, Leeds, Stansell Mountain Studios. Mustafa Jame in my name in studios, right? Say hello, good afternoon, good day to you, wherever you are on this planet Earth. Like see and flag up on our page that we'll be having some participants from different political parties and party supporters happening around in the Gambia. Right now, currently, as we are all aware, the Gambia presidential election is right at the corner here. So we got participants from different parties of the Gambia, different political parties in the Gambia. My name is Mustafa Jama at the State in Studios here, saying good day to you all. As I said it earlier, we'll be having introduction from themselves to introduce themselves, who they are, and just a brief introduction, and then we will pick it up from there with the questions that might follow. So at this seat, we say good day to you all. Welcome all on board here on Sky Power Radio and TV services. We would go alphabetically. Ahmed, it was supposed to be the one we go with, but Ahmed is not here. First of all, Bakari, you're not a stranger here. We'll say hello, good afternoon to you, and welcome to Sky Power Radio and TV services, Mr. Bakari.
Thank you very much, Brother Mustafa. It's always a pleasure to be here. This is my home, by the way. And also greetings to my co-panelists, who are great brothers that I follow and respect and admire immensely. Greetings to all our viewers and those following us on the radio and the television as well. As you said, my name is Bakari Ba. I'm a Gambian, born in Banjul, but originally from Chamen in Nyanija. Grew up in Banjul again. Spent most of my adult life here in the UK. Immense follower of Gambian politics, and a member and a supporter of the PDOIS party in the Gambia. So I greet everyone.
Thank you very much, Lamin. Mr. Tamba, if you unmute yourself.
All right, sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you, Mr. Jame, and the Sky Power platform, everyone management. Thank you very much for giving me the platform. I've been here once before, and I'm happy to be back here. I am Gambian born and bred, born in Fonyi, educated in Wasadum, educated in Buyam, Gambia College School of Public Health. Spent half my life in the UK now. I left in the early 20s, so I just crossed the 40 bracket. Sorry to reveal my age now, I'm getting old. But yeah, I am APRC 100%, but we're working in an alliance now with the Gambia Democratic Congress, Gambia Action Party, and an independent candidate. And we're vying for State House right now. So for me, it's all about Gambia. Gambia comes first, everything else secondary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mas. Welcome.
Thank you, Mustafa, and good morning to, well, it's morning here, so when I say morning, just understand. Good morning to my co-panelists and to your viewers, and thank you very much for hosting us. It's all geared towards nation building. We appreciate that, and we appreciate the fact that you could call on us to come and shed some light on some issues and expand the discussion on our shared commonality, which is the Gambia. My name is Nata Mas. I was born and brought up in SL, Lower Nyomi. did my primary school education there to Gambia High School before traveling to the UK, where I lived for 3 years before moving down to America, where I currently am. Came here as a student to do my bachelor's degree. I'm here to speak my views on Gambia's current political situation using my UDP lens. And I must add, I'm in no official capacity in this position here. I'm just here because I'm a UDP supporter, and I believe I can speak on behalf of my views for the UDP. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to a fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mas. Mr. Jang Suleiman?
Thank you, Mustafa. My greetings to my co-panelists. I'm honored to be among great minds today, albeit with different political ideals. Good afternoon, our viewers. I am Suleiman Jeng, born bred in Basse, Nasir High School, Gambia College, HTC, then UEP, where I get a double major, bachelor's, English and International Development Studies. I was a senior police officer. I was also reinstated as a chief superintendent, but I couldn't honor the appointment to go back because I felt if I had taken it, I would not be able to do my political contributions for NPP because by law, as a civil servant, you cannot be achieved in politics. So that is one of the reasons why I couldn't just go home and carry on as a chief superintendent of police. I am today going to express why Barrow should, be retained at State House, and why all the other parties are just passing clouds, and we should not waste our votes with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ahmed is still struggling. I'll try and bring him back again and see if we can get him. Ahmed, can you hear me now? Can you hear us now? Ahmed is here for turnaround, which is Mr. Esa Maifal, but he's struggling with the internet connection back home in the Gambia. But nonetheless, we'll try and catch up with him if time permits. Right. If I may come to you, Mr. Bakari, alphabetically. Bakari, why PDOIS? Why do you support PDOIS?
Thank you very much, brother Mustafa. That's a very pertinent and important question, and I think it's a question that I tend to ask any Gambian that I interact with, and my answer is going to be very simple. It's a party that's formed on a very strong fundamentals of loving the country first, and also the ideals of the party are definitely in line with what I expect and what I want to see in political parties. Then you come to the leadership. You could not ask for any better leaderships of a political party in the Gambia than those that we have and seen at the PDOIS. And then you look at the policies and the programs that the party has for the Gambia. It's definitely what we need as a country, and it's definitely what's going to take us forward as a country. And our message and our policies has always been consistent. The leadership has always been consistent in putting the Gambia first in whatever they say, in whatever we do. And that has really transpired to us as the supporters of the party. It's interesting sometimes, when you speak to some Gambians, they just tend to associate the party as a long party that has never won any elections. But if you look at the PDOIS, its leadership and what we stand for, our primary focus wasn't to win elections when we've set up the political party. And that has reflected in how our leadership has contributed into ending the 22 years of a dictatorship. People even tend to confuse Halifa Sallah has been the party leader for the last 36 years. Gambians need to also sometimes research and find out a little bit about the political parties that they are faced with. Halifa has taken the reins from 2006, but since then, he has never ever contested as a presidential candidate for the PDOIS. All his efforts, all the party efforts were geared to rescuing the Gambia and setting a new democracy, which we are right now enjoying in the Gambia. So for me, I can sit down here the whole day and talk about why I support the PDOIS and why I want Gambians to support PDOIS. It's just simple. The party is honest, it's very consistent. We have the leaders to match it, and our policies are what we need in the Gambia. Thank you.
What have you got to offer then? Do you know what has PDOIS got to offer to the Gambian people, which is key here, Mr. Ba?
Thank you very much. To be quite honest, what we have to offer is quite a lot. As you can see, we've launched our TA, which is our transformative agenda. We've got 7 pillars there. And if you look at those 7 pillars, it touches on everything that the Gambian need. And one thing about the PDI is we haven't copied and pasted our manifesto from anywhere in the internet. Our leaders has been in the country for the last 35 years or so.
Do you know of any party that copy and paste their manifestos? Would you be able to tell us that? Because I don't want you to come here and insinuate. We want straight shooting here. Why are you insinuating here then?
To be quite honest, I've read some party policies or programs, which if you look at them, in fact, without the proper editing, you will know this is not definitely a policy that is for the Gambia. It's so broad, or it's so, let's say, for another country. And hence why even when we launched our this party transformative agenda, we were very skeptical of putting it out there openly and so quickly in the public, because I'm going to avoid to name names, and I'm apologizing for that. But I know for a fact, some parties, if you read their policies, you would see that what is in the policy is not in line, and it's just something that has been taken from somewhere. And I'm not just saying it's one party that did it, so I'm not insinuating. I'm just avoiding kind of finger pointing. But what I'm trying to say here is our policies has definitely been researched, implemented, and scientifically studied for the Gambian cause and the Gambian need. Coming back to your question, what we have got to offer, we've got a lot to offer. 56 years of independence. What have we got to show for that as a country? Very little. And I believe what we have as a policy and as a program, if fully implemented, within 5 years, Gambia would see that difference. And that is properly spelled out in our transformative agenda. And if anyone is watching here, either you are a Deutsche supporter or not, we are the first political party that has launched our own party app. Our TA is on that app there. If I want to sit down here and broaden the discussion, I think it would be unfair to my other co-panelists, but I will try and summarize it as the discussion goes. But everything about what Gambians need to know and what DOI has to offer is there. And then as the discussion continues, I'll definitely expand on that.
Right, I'll come back to you with that. Mr. Tamba, Lamin, why do you support APRC or coalition? Why do you come into coalitions with the GDC? Why APRC, Mr. Tamba? Mr. Tamba, are you able to unmute yourself, please?
Oh, sorry. Now, your question is twofold. One is, why did I become an APRC supporter?
That's correct.
Secondly, why did the APRC strike an alliance with the GDC, Gambia Democratic Congress?
Correct.
Gambia Action Party, and one independent. So now, for me as a person, I was not interested in politics at all. Even though I did some work for the AFPRC back in 1995, 1996, I was about 14, 15, something like that. I was their standing secretary by virtue of the compound that I lived in. The president of the Fonyi Combo Association owned that compound, and their secretary was somewhat busy or unreliable at times. I was in high school at the time, I think Form 3, Form 4. So I was a standing secretary. I was helping them with writing their meeting menus, minutes, putting their programs together. But I was not interested in politics. I was never interested. In fact, I know exactly how Fabakary Tombonjata was selected to stand as the MP for Talinding, Serakunda East, it used to be. All right? Because I helped out in his lobbying.
Yeah, Mr. Tamba, how many APRCs have we got? How many APRC do we have in the Gambia?
There's only one APRC, and which is the APRC under President Jammeh. Right. And that's legal, by the way. President Jammeh was elected by 2 congresses as the party leader, supreme party leader, flag bearer, and the chairman of APRC. So I started supporting APRC in 2017. Funnily enough, because of a lot of stories on social media, I was not connected to Gambian politics, so I didn't know what was going on. So when the impasse came, naturally as a Gambian, I thought war was looming in my country. So I started tuning to Gambian media houses, online stuff, and I was reading a lot of grave stories written against Jammeh. And I used to think most of these stories were true. And I was actually commenting and asking for Jammeh's departure at the time. But one of the guys from the NIA sat me down and said to me, I'll send you 3 books about Jammeh and the APRC and the AFPRC. Somebody's coming to the UK in the next 2-3 days. I'll send you these books to read so that you know that a lot of stuff that they were saying against Jammeh was false. This man has done for Gambia what the 434 years before him didn't do. So I said, okay, that's interesting. So he sat me down for an hour and a half chatting on Messenger. And then he said to me, this is what happened. I said, wow, so you think a lot of stuff that happened, Jammeh didn't even know is not true? And I said, yes. So I went through these books the whole of January. I was reading the books, and I still have those books. I think I have them there. Now and again, I'll go back in there to consult them. This is one of the books, The Birth of a Probable Nation. This is another book. The Birth of a Probable Nation was written by Bakari Sanyan. And this one was Musa E. Jallow. President Jammeh's moving legacy.
Would you like the former president, to come back and rule the Gambia again? Would you like that to happen?
Of course, if democracy,
Right.
I don't mind if Ousainou Darboe rules the Gambia, if Jammeh rules the Gambia, if he comes back and the majority vote for him, who am I? I will vote for him 100%. Based on what I know today, what he's done for the Gambia is one reason why.
What has he done for the Gambia? Do you know? What do you know that he's done
so
for the Gambia?
now we go statistics, exactly why I read these books when they were sent to me. When President Jammeh came, let's start with the economy. When President Jammeh came, the Gambia was undergoing depression until the IMF had to pressure Gambia government to institute an economic recovery program. Parastatals were collapsing. GPMB, Gambia Cooperative Union, Gambia Cooperative Bank, all those matters relating to agriculture totally collapsed. When Jammeh came, our national budget was 900 million in 1994. By the time Jammeh left, our national budget was expanded. Business boomed. Tourism expanded, it boomed. Lots of other departments in our country just escalated positively. So the economy went from 900 million in 1994 to 13.5 billion by 2016. Before Jammeh came, Gambia government...
Where do you get these figures from, Mr. Tamba? Where do you get your figures from?
Of course, go and listen to the first, I think it was Fafamba, who was the finance minister in 1994. Remember, I was in school, high school that time. When they were presenting the budget in 1994, the Gambia budget was actually 900 million in 1994. That's a fact. You go to the archive and find out what the national budget for the Gambia government was, 900 million. By the time Jammeh left, that one you know is 13.5 billion national budget. And we're still stuck at that. The budget has got budgetary support from the EU and other partner agencies across the world. That's what takes it to 20-something billion now. But Gambia government itself has a budget by itself that it supports of 13.5 billion. When Jammeh came, Gambia government didn't build a single school by itself. Jammeh built 1,000 schools. Gambian schools were 237 in total. Most of them Christian missionaries or NGOs or other things that were running in the Gambia. Jammeh took schools from 237 to 1,031. All right? Free education for girls, free education for everyone to junior secondary school level. Those things, and Jammeh didn't stop there. He passed legislation to protect our children. He passed legislation to protect people against domestic violence. Didn't stop there. Our agriculture was being mechanized. How do we control our food prices? Our market policy, APRC market policy is, if you do not produce your own food, your own consumables, you cannot control the market prices. And that's a simple economic fact. So therefore, Jammeh came up with a policy, and we still have Vision 2016, where the famous phrase, eat what you grow, grow what you eat. When Jammeh was implementing these businesses himself and running them, people said, oh, he's greedy. He's got his fingers in too many pies. But what they didn't know, that Jammeh was doing most of these things so he can stabilize our market prices. Animal husbandry,
right?
Agricultural farms, crops.
We'll come to that details as you put it. It's just like, the short for it. We want to see that bit of.
Okay, so that's one. Okay, that's right. So now the last question, I run through that quickly. Why did we go into alliance with GDC? It was natural. Jammeh and Mama Kandeh worked together for 10 years or longer. The ideology of the GDC and GAP and APS is the same. Mass development via mass action. Mama Kandeh has done more in opposition than Barrow has done in government. So therefore, for Mama Kandeh and Jammeh to converge again in 2021, after diverging in 2016, it was a natural phenomenon. It was a natural occurrence. And we're happy we're back together as one unit and we're going to win. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nata, why do you join UDP? Why do you support UDP?
Thank you, Mustafa. I think it ties into the issue of the APRC and AFPRC of Yahya Jammeh. But most importantly, first and foremost, is a proven track record of leadership. We're all old enough to witness or to know or recall what happened between 1996 to 2021 in terms of Gambian politics. We have a committed, dedicated leadership that has proven time and time again that they are committed to the principles that they advocate for, that they fight for, that they've been tortured for and killed for. And that is the principle that the Gambia, despite whatever economic policies and despite whatever plans you have for the country, cannot move forward if we do not have a democratic state that is grounded in the rule of law, giving rights to every citizen, because without that, ideas cannot be shared in any country, which is what held us back during the 22 years of Jammeh's rule that Mr. Tamba is touting as the best that happened to the country. Everything he said here, to start with, first and foremost, the president is barred by the constitution from engaging in business. He did. It doesn't matter what the intent is behind it. It's a violation of the constitution, and his sworn oath as the number one citizen of the country is to uphold the constitution, defend the constitution, even if it means with his life. So going forward and violating that constitution, it doesn't matter what good comes after that. It's primarily, it's kind of like going into a contract to engage in an illegality that cannot be enforced. So I joined the UDP. I was initially a UDP supporter. When the military came in 1994, we were all infatuated by the fatigue and, when they drive in the streets and their uniform. I actually got hurt at a Yahya Jammeh event because we are infatuated by these soldiers. So we are all at some point, welcoming of the change. But young and naive, you don't see things beyond the optics.
Would you say that's grievance? You got grievance against Yahya Jammeh then, Nata? Is that your personal grievance?
It's not a personal grievance. I was saying I was so involved with it, but I would not say I'm from a political family, but I'm surrounded by people who are very I wouldn't say loud political opinions. Well, yeah, because my uncle was very close to Sirif Mustafa Diva, and from that angle, politics was never far from the discussion table. So as a young person, you see these soldiers, you're infatuated by them, and you keep hearing the elders, military rule is not good for any country, military rule. And what they cite mostly is events that were happening in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, because counter coups were evident. And then November 11 happened. That was the first instant of that. So gradually I'm like, oh, okay, what these elders are saying is coming to pass. After November 11, we had the attacks on Farafenni military barracks, we had the Katong attacks. All those things were looking or gearing towards instability in the country. So when the political space was opened up, some of us, like I said, my uncle was a very staunch UDP, NCP person. We were expecting that when the political space opened up, Sirif Diba was the better positioned candidate to win the presidency. So the enthusiasm grew, but then they were banned. But by that time already, we had given up on APRC. AFPRC at that time, because of all the things that were going on in the country. We started getting scared. So the UDP was formed, and as we all know, it's an amalgamation of different parties, because in order to shield himself and create a political opportunity for himself, Jammeh, because at the time Gambia was ruled by decrees, Jammeh banned these political parties. PPP was banned, NCP was banned, GPP was banned, and these were the people who have experience in the civil service, experience in governance, experience in politics. They were banned, so their supporters got disenfranchised. That's how the UDP came into play. And naturally, people gravitated towards the UDP. And at the time, like I said, I was young, but I was inspired by that leadership because these were familiar names in Gambian politics. I don't know. You hearing an echo? Because I am.
Yeah, it's a bit of itching from somebody's end. Can you try and mute yourself when you? I can hear some cracking noise somewhere. Maybe it might be Marlon. Is it you, Ahmed? If you can try and mute yourself, that would be nice. Right. Okay.
Okay.
Nata, you said democracy.
Yes.
Is that your main reason why you support you are against APRC then, yeah? Or you support UDP?
That's the main reason I oppose Yahya Jammeh. It's the tyrannical state. Tyranny essentially is violation of the constitution and ruling by your own whims. That's what Yahya Jammeh thrived on from his first day in office to his last day in office. So I could not get behind that. And then looking for an alternative leadership, like I said, UDP has a proven track record of people. For example, Dabo has been in the public domain for over 4 decades, much longer than I was born actually. So a person like that, and you look at his track record, what do you find? Nothing untoward that would say, okay, I cannot trust or get behind this person. Kemesen Jame is another person. Like I said, in primary school, we learned a lot about our history, not so much in the past, but our political situation in the country. So a lot of these names, you could have named ministers when you were in primary school who were serving in the government at the time. So these were household names to a certain extent. So when they come together and join the political party or form the political party, naturally we'll gravitate towards them because we already know they have political capital. So as a young person, I'm saying from that point, it was more of what attracted you rather than policies. But as you get more and more interested in the issues, because that's one thing, when you're in UDP, you get dragged into these issues, whether you like it or not. Or UDP got attacked at this place, or UDP has a clash with security forces, UDP. So you naturally see the injustice that's being perpetuated, and you get more interested in the party. You follow their every movement, and then you realize that they have the most workable policies. So the policies, for me, to be honest, came later on, and I'm not saying much later, like say around 2001 to 2006. That was when they came. But the first thing that convinced me was the leadership. I have complete faith in that leadership, and they have never given me any reason to withdraw my support for them because they have been committed to what they stand for, what they believe in. The likes of Single Nyasi died for it, and that for me is enough.
Yes. We'll come to that. Mr. Yang, why do you got like you said in your introduction? Can you unmute yourself first? In your introduction, like you said, you once in UDP and all that. But why do you switch? Why are you supporting NPP now? Why do you support NPP, Mr. Suleiman Yang?
Thank you very much. I think that's a very crucial question. But first, I would begin with my political awareness. My political awareness began in 1987 when I had contact with Swaibu Toure and Sambu of PDOIS. Then they used to travel up country selling their newspaper called Foroya. So I've learned and picked, political interest from those papers that I've been buying and reading. And then I became interested in party policies, leadership quality, rule of law, human rights, democracy, etc. And then I started writing when I was at college, and then I was doing poetry, and then I would write an article once in a while. I think I've got a few that we have published in Foroya and then on the Daily Observer. So when I joined the police, I realized actually what Doi is teaching and what this Jammeh government is practicing is like day and night. Like Nata highlighted, Jammeh was using the constitution according to his own whims, irrespective of him swearing to uphold the constitution and to protect citizens' basic human rights. He was completely abusing those. I said, I cannot work under such a leadership. So I left. And when I came until 2016, I was apolitical. I was just writing. And then I looked at Dabo because in 2001 I was fortunate to work with him, and I see him as a very profound and a collected leader. And from that, we had a relationship. I said, this is a guy that definitely I hold great esteem to. And because of that, I joined the UDP. I interacted with, very, resolved UDP members like Sekou Sedili. But along the way, I felt disappointed because what Dabo was preaching, most of the UDP supporters were flouting. And I said, no, I cannot be part of this. That was why I left and joined NPP. And when I looked at Barrow, I realized
Is
this
it because
is a
of the
person.
UDP support? Some of the supporters, they are flouting. That's why you left UDP for NPP. Is that why?
Absolutely. And I've always been saying that. Absolutely, yeah. And when I looked at Barrow, I realized, is an embodiment of all the ideals that one looks for in a leadership. Nata highlighted that, he believes in a democracy, that is grounded on the rule of law. And we have all seen under the leadership of Barrow, this is exactly what is flourishing at the moment. Comparing the Barrow to Jammeh, there are people now insult Barrow, they insult his person, his parents, and say so many things.
Who are those people? Because insulting is something that, if you try to say, you need to
Mainly,
tell
mainly,
someone
mainly, main- mainly that comes from some of the UDP supporters.
oh, okay. So UDP, some
Most
of
of,
the UDP
yeah,
supporters are insulting
yeah,
President Barrow. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, 90% of those who insult President Barrow are from UDP. And Barrow had not personally ordered for anything to be done against those people. So that means he is, upholding, that democracy. He is upholding that freedom of speech, and he is upholding that, rule of law. Under Jammeh, nobody would have thought about that you can insult Jammeh and then you can go to bed and sleep. Even if you don't, like we all know, 2015, 2014, when you call back home from Europe or America, and the conversation, by mistake or slip of the tongue, Jammeh comes in, the other person on the other line would want to hang up because they believe once you mention Jammeh's name, the NIA would pick it up and that person would come and be picked.
Yeah, just
And
hold on
this
there.
has not.
Mr. Manjang, just to remind you that you are live. We can hear you. We can hear some background noise from your end. So if you try muting your microphone at the moment, because you're on the audio feed at the minute, so yeah, we can hear you loud and clear from our end here, Ahmed. Thank you. Yeah, go on. Sorry about that, Mr. Jang.
Yeah, the other point again, when I looked at Barrow, I've seen a person, who is quite, honest with himself, because at the beginning he realized that he has limitations and he never shied away from those limitations. He made them public. Like he was not a political being, he was a business person, and then he had come to serve 3 terms and then he would leave. But along the way, a lot of things change, and that changed his perception, and he carried on.
You said here earlier that Yahya Jammeh, he was a military, and then because he's sworn in as a military and all that, all of a sudden he changed. And then Adama Barrow here says 3 years. Now, you're saying 2 contradicting things there, Mr. Jang.
No, I said President Jammeh, as a president, swear to uphold the constitution. And in upholding the constitution, you had to uphold democracy. You have to uphold the rule of law. You have to uphold freedom of speech and association, which has never been prevalent under Jammeh. And apart from the tyranny leading according to one's whims, Jammeh has, illegally and unlawfully, arrested and detained people according to his will, and and so many people have died under his leadership, in torture, and a lot of people were, disappeared under enforced disappearances. So those are not qualities of a democratic leader, and those are not qualities of a good leader. Even if you build and pave all the streets in that country in gold and diamond,
If I may ask here, is it a good quality of a leader who says, I will stay for 3 years and all of a sudden you switch? Is that a good quality?
It depends on which perspective you looked at it. Like I said, because he did not shy away from his limitations, but a lot of things has changed. Like Jammeh, when Jammeh came to power, he said he was going to stay for 4 years. But when the EU said no, there is a long period for a transition to happen, he changed it to 2 years. And within that 2 years, it was the Gambian people that he organized, whether directly or indirectly, approached him and said, no, we don't want you to go. We want you to retire from the military and stand as a civilian, and then we will support you. And then he has. So that has not like made him a bad person because he has switched from A to B in terms of promise. So the same could be said of Barrow. Now, what made Barrow distinct from Jammeh, Dabo, and the rest? Because Barrow is focused on national development. And Barrow has picked, like Tamba highlighted, in 1994, the budget was 9 million. And in 2016, it was about 13 billion. So that shows how reckless Jammeh was in terms of spending. And then when Jammeh left, there was nothing, we were told, by the coalition government. And then there was no money that would have sustained, the civil service even for a month or two. But because of their due diligence and their hard work and dedication, they were able to, to secure funds that would sustain the government, the transition government. And now, salaries are not only paid on time, but we have seen 50% increment in salary. If you look at the NPP website, npp.gm, you would see NPP's policies on education, on agriculture, on health, on infrastructure. And all these things, if you look at it, Barrow was able to pick most of it within the last 3 years of his leadership. Look at, for example, the health. How many ambulances has Barrow secured? Recently, we have seen, a press release where the Francis Small Hospital, teaching hospital, is going to be renovated. And that does not only that is not only restricted on terms of infrastructure, but also on the equipment and the training of staffs. Because when you want to bring about change, you do not only look at one aspect, because it has to be holistic.
So,
and that is.
Yes, if I may come in here, President Barrow openly said he said tear gas these 3 years, Jotna people. What is your take on that?
Well, my take on that, from a security point of view and from a political point of view, he was just trying to express, a situation wherein if someone is trying or or doing things that will render the country ungovernable, as a leader, you need to take a drastic action, to hold that.
Okay.
And
if
that
Yahya Jammeh, former president, says the same thing like you just said here. So you're saying Barrow is trying to take drastic actions to calm people down.
Let me give you a scenario here. April 10 and 11 and 3 years Jotna. April 10 and 11 consisted of students who were demonstrating for justice for one of them, a female student that was raped. And all they wanted was for the government to bring to book, the person that was responsible for that rape. Instead of addressing that, they opened live ammunition on those students and they were killed. So that one is barbaric, is unlawful and unacceptable. For the 3 years, Jotna, here is a group of people who want to forcefully, topple an elected government by means of holding the government to ransom by occupying streets.
Are we allowed to jump in? Like,
you will jump. You can jump. You can interject anytime you feel like, and all of us. Let's make it interactive. This is the Gambia we're talking about.
Yeah, I have something to say about that, because what he's
Okay.
talking about is like Barrow was literally bragging about tear gassing citizens.
Yeah.
The Gambian constitution guarantees the right to protest. And if we look at the events that were going on, it's less than 3 years ago, the permit, which in the first place we shouldn't be seeking as citizens to go and protest. Protestation is just basically telling the government what you're doing, we don't want it. In this case, telling Barrow, you promised us 3 years, the 3 years is here, you need to resign. What did they do? They flung them to between Old Joswang and Banjul, in between the mangroves, where there's nobody, no business, nothing. So the only thing you could accuse them of is probably say, okay, they're blocking traffic. Was that worth tear gassing them? And when they were out to protest, there were instigators within them who were who started attacking them. We saw that in Old Joshua. And then Barrow came out bragging about tear gassing them. Before that, they said that they bought hot water tanks that they were going to spray the citizens with. So that's tyrannical tendency. In fact, it's not a tendency, it's a manifestation of tyranny. He was bragging about it. Like April 10 and 11, those children wanted to protest to say this is wrong. Protest is all that. You know, they were going to march to Denton Bridge and hand over a letter to the president. They were not holding anybody to ransom. They were not asking for the government to be toppled because they were not armed. We saw them with their banner class.
Yes, Lamin, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. Sorry, Natamas. Sorry. Suleiman Jang is basically talking about matters and contradicting himself. So he said the government needs to take drastic action to ensure peace is maintained. And that peace, he took year 2000, the student demonstration as an example, where security forces shot the students. True, that was a grave error in 2000, and I know all about it because I was a student then, and I was part of the students who went to Jame to bring about a truce between Jame government and the students, and most of the students who were arrested were freed as a result. So now you're saying
some of them were killed, Mr. Tamba. Some of them were killed, innit?
Yeah, obviously.
Some and not only
died.
that,
and some are still injured anyway.
Yeah, some are still
injured, like
some are disabled
killing.
By it. Look, I have never ever tried.
Indemnified. There's no justice for that. And the first role of a government of any state is to preserve the life and property of every citizen.
Precisely.
If, for example, something happens that the state has no hand in, it's duty bound on them to investigate and establish facts.
Precisely.
A commission was set up to investigate that April 10 and 11 investigation. What did Jame do? Indemnify all the soldiers who were involved in it.
Right.
This day, justice has not been served.
Precisely. Again, this brings me back. I have never ever tried to cover the murder of a Gambian citizen or the maiming of a Gambian citizen or anything. My question has always been, what happened? What's the full story? Have people been killed? Who's killed them? Why? Where did the directives come from? Were any investigations? We can leave those to one side. But let's suppose Suleiman Jang said, government has to take drastic action. And when 3 years Jotna came without violence, they were attacked, gassed, beaten, some of them are forever maimed, all right, disabled for the rest of their lives. And he's saying, Jama government shot the students in 2001 and they were just demonstrating. Fine, true. The security forces shouldn't have done that. But what about Kanilai, where they were demonstrating peacefully? Barrow government shot them and killed them. What about Faraba? Barrow government shot them and killed them. In Busumbala, Barrow government shot another person. Thankfully, that person didn't die. So in Jame's 22 years, there was only one occasion where protesters were shot. All right? In Barrow's short 3-4 years, his government has shot protesters 3 times and tear gassed about 8-9 different occasions.
Mr. Was it one occasion?
It was just 2000. There was no other demonstrators in the Gambia.
Mr. Tamba is right on the Faraba issue and the Kanila issue and the Farato issue. On the Faraba issue, those who were responsible for the shooting and killing, we all see and hear. Those who were arrested, they were arraigned, charged, and sentenced. For the Kanila issue,
what was the sentence?
You can decide that, but we know the police who were, because it was about 3 police officers who were arrested and then sentenced.
Barrow wanted to cut that
prosecution. No, not Barrow. No, listen, not Barrow. It was the families of the victims who came out and said, Barrow should pardon them. And when they made that press release, everybody came out and condemned it, and the government resent. The government didn't interfere thereafter because it listens. On the case of Kanilai, according to investigations that we are told, because I'm not privy and I can only speak of what I am aware of, that the person who killed was one of the economic soldiers. And normally when a soldier is on peacekeeping, if he or she commits any crime, it's like he's an international person, he's a diplomat, the person cannot be tried within the local jurisdiction. What they would do is they would collect all the necessary information and evidence and send it to the host country, which would decide on the prosecution or whatever.
Just to correct you, the ECOMIC PRO said the people who discharged ammunition that day in Kanilai were not ECOMIC forces. They are a separate contingent of Senegalese forces.
I'll come to that. I'll come to that.
That is why Mr. Tamba. That is why Mr. Tamba. I said I can only speak on what I am aware. What I am not privy, I cannot. So I cannot be here because I am NPP supporter and support Barrow or his government for anything that I feel infringes, the constitution or anything that is not right. Many a times when he says something or does some things, I am one of the false NPP supporters who would come out and condemn it because, like I said, my political consciousness has started somewhere. And so I don't want any
PDIS from PDIS.
Testament to the fact that since APRC and NPP are comparing notes on who violated the constitution more than the other person, this should just be sidelined. Like,
by the way, the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia allows a sitting president to engage in agricultural business.
Right.
No income generating business.
Right. Okay. Before we come to you, Nata, we'll have Ahmed on the line from audio to introduce himself. Ahmed Manjang for the turnaround. Ahmed, welcome to Sky Power. Hello, how are you? Are you there? Hello, Ahmed. Unmute yourself. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
So how are you?
I'm good, thank you. We can all hear you loud and clear. Ahmed, thank you. Welcome, Sky Power, for the first for the couple of times here. Hello.
Yeah, I have to apologize for internet connection.
Yeah, can you speak a bit louder? Your voice is a bit low.
Yeah, I've been switching between two internet service providers, but not faring very well. And I have to admit, in the process, I'm lost, but I hear that Mr. Suleiman did very well. And I hear Lamin Tanba's comment. And first of all, I want to say I'm really honored one of the Gambia finest together to discuss our way forward for our country.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. This is 2021. Internet in itself is a big serious issue here. I have to admit, I'm more a little bit sympathetic towards Barrow. I think what we are seeing in the Gambia, of course, we have to blame it for this help. Well, Barrow is a team of state capture. And I've already seen certain political parties already been captured by the same interest group. So what is if those people happen to what we're going to see is not going to do changes because their politics is going to go against those people. Yes, I agree with Suleiman, and when Barrow initially, he was very, very honest. The Guardians, he admitted to his inadequacies. If the journalists ask him how are you going to run this country when we never even manage government, he will always tell them, look at the behind me. But what actually happened when Lord Dabo is sidelined, when his influence sidelined all those people they frustrated, and some of them were sat along him. So in the end, what we have is a UDP government, and they fall out. In the process, they fall out, and now all hell broke loose.
Right, Ahmed. If I may ask you, can I ask you this first? Can I ask you this, Mr. Majang? Why do you support the turnaround? Why turnaround?
Because it's different. I think our society is so polarized. I see him as somebody who can unite this country, and yes, Gambia is so frank, it's unbelievable, and if you are on ground, you can all melt tension in the air. I think because he come from out the will, people say, he come from nowhere. That part will be skillful. But I see in him somebody who can unite this country. He's competent. I don't think also we need to emphasize that. And also,
yeah, but what makes him competent? You're saying here he's competent. What makes him competent? What?
The TRRC alone.
So, oh, okay. So it's because he's competent at TRRC. So, are you trying to say it's because he's competent at TRRC, he will be competent to rule the country? Is that what you insinuate? What you're trying to conclude?
No, you look at TV of this guy, Esam Baifal. He's been man key international positions where he administer over people from different backgrounds at international positions. I'm talking about what he did in this Timor and other part of the world. So that is, compared to what Bako was doing. So there is clear distinction between them. And he was also have experience before he did for his international position, how government works. And he's very familiar with the local laws as well. So that gives him an age, and he have youth, and you can see his passion about corruption. And you would, I will trust him with coming up with an anti-corruption commission that will work. Right now, Kenya is implementing an anti-corruption commission, which was written by Esam Baifal, and Ukraine and Belarus also are implementing the same thing. So that's why.
Can I ask Mr. Manjang one quick question here?
Yes, go on. Yes, go on. Ahmed, if you want to listen to Mr. Jang.
Mr. Manjang, how would you explain Esam Baifal's historical association with tyrants? Like he was prosecuting Jammeh's victims for him in early 1994-96. And then he also defended Charles Taylor, who is, a known, tyrant, dictator, and a murderer.
Yeah, Mr. Jen, being a legal man, you know that all those people also deserve justice. That's how democracy works. And the worst atrocities committed on the Gambia soil were not committed on the Yaya Jammeh. They were committed on the in the Jawahar's administration. One coup coin dissolved our democracy and caused utter chaos. We know who defended those rebels who are responsible of those bloodshed. In fact, he's been given credit for that. So, in that respect, who is the worst? In the Gambia soil, we know how many people died as a result of that 1981 coup d'etat, and we know who defended them. The end of almost freeing all of them. So these criminals, they also deserve justice. In fact, what Esam Baifal was defending is not what they do. But they were being tried by their local courts already, and also been tried again by the ICC. That is double jeopardy, what they call in England double jeopardy. So that's what Esam Baifal was defending in those instances. You cannot try somebody twice for the same crime.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manjang. If I may come to you from the bottom now, Mr. Jang, alphabetically, we started from B, Bakari. Ahmed was supposed to be on top as A. So this time around, we'll start from the bottom, going or walk away towards the top. So if we may come to you, Mr. Suleiman Jang S. Suleiman.
Yes.
You think your party got what it takes to win this presidential election, you think?
Absolutely. I don't only think, but I believe, I am convinced that
Why?
NPP has what it takes to win, and Barrow is going to win the December polls. Because if you like I said, we have to look at
what is that based on?
Yeah, first of all, if you ask any political party member who would win the election, they would say their leader would win. They are convinced. But to win an election, there must be indicators. And if any party has those indicators all pointing at him or her, then you would be rest assured that is the party and leader that will win the election. For example, let's look at incumbency, to begin with. NPP has the incumbency. Its leader, even though NPP is not the government, it's not the party in government, but its flag bearer and party leader is the incumbent. And because of that, we know historically, Gambians generally, especially the provincial electorate, tend to align themselves with the incumbent. Two, because the incumbent uses government resources to build projects, to initiate projects, and to inaugurate projects. So those projects would be seen as solely done by the incumbent under his leadership instead of the government as a body. So Barrow is enjoying that with NPP. If you look again, a clear example would be the Jokadu and Nyanija by-elections. Prior to the elections, most Gambians, especially the political commentators, Nyamina, most of the political commentators on social media all concluded that GDC would win by virtue that it was its stronghold and GDP was very strong there. And secondly, because GDP had the backing and blessings of UDP, everyone thought, except some of us from NPP and those who see things from a clear perspective, believe that GDC was meant to win. So that election was tagged as the do or die for NPP. If NPP had lost that election, that would have been the end of NPP. And if NPP wins, then that would determine the December polls. And we have seen NPP won with a slight victory. So that one is a clear indication. And two, if you look at NPP compared to GDC and UDP, NPP is their little brother. They've been in the game for over 24 years. And NPP, is now beating them. And NPP is several streets. I can, unapologetically say, NPP is now several streets ahead of all those big brothers. If you look at, let's say, for example, the roads projects, which most of them are downplaying as significant. But people in Hakalang, even if the roads are not completed, but they are seeing, the inauguration of those road projects as a brighter future for them. Because for several years, they've been crying for those things and they've never had it. And Barrow, came and not only promised, but initiated the project. So that is for them, is the it for them to vote for Barrow. Look at the OMVG in Jarasoma, for example. Most of those, villages never had access to electricity. But because Barrow has initiated and inaugurated that project, most of those people...
You're saying something, unmute yourself, yeah?
Yeah, are you trying to claim Jammeh's projects like Barrow is doing now?
No.
OMVG, Barrow knows nothing about it.
Mr. Tamba, you and I know that government is continuity. But the person in Basse or Koina doesn't know that. So for them, when Jammeh came, let me just answer his question. When Jammeh came in 1994, the university extension program was already in place. The university extension program was already in place, and that was initiated by Jawara, because I was part of those who.
Okay, I'm gonna just say that.
I was.
Give him a second.
No, let me just finish. Yeah.
You're going.
I was part of those students. Who is talking? Is it Ahmed or me?
No, you go, Suleiman.
Yeah, Mr. Tamba, I was part of those students, and Ibrahim Sankare, the current spokesperson of the government. We were part of those students who started the summer program with Nova Scotia, St. Mary's University. So that was before Jammeh came. And I remember in 1994, we were attending one of those classes when the coup happened, and Sankare got arrested because of a report he filed for BBC. So you cannot sit here and tell me the university was initiated by Jammeh. He inaugurated it, but the project was already laid by the PPP government.
I don't believe that.
So that's, well, believe what you want to believe. But I am telling you the facts as they are, because I am a living witness.
Yes, Ahmed, you can come in now.
Yeah, what I want to tell Mr. Jen, by the way, all these panelists, I have so much respect for all of them. I have to say that because these are the present and future of Gambia. They're extremely smart. Unfortunately, all of them are outside the country. Mr. Jen, what you felt, I definitely feel sympathetic to Barrow. Barrow, his heart might be in good place, but he is not in charge. With all these infrastructural development you have mentioned, they are very, very important. But I think Barrow, the best is not just good enough. He is not in charge of this one and that. The daily life of these Well, it's an absolute nightmare. I was
Right,
sitting and
absolute nightmare. Barrow is absolute nightmare. Barrow has not got what it takes to rule. He's not in control, like Ahmed put it. If I may come to you, Nata. Nata, you think UDP has got what it takes to win 2021 come next week, December? Mr.
Yes, I
Mas.
do. But before I get into
Why?
that, there's one point I wanted to address. When Mr. Manjong was speaking of, um, SFR's track record and defending people like Charles Taylor that Mr. Jim brought up, and he said even criminals have a right to defense. I totally agree with him 100%. But when he tried to correlate that to Dabo and 1981, that's an error that we cannot let to stand. Because part of the issue around 1981 was that Kukoy Sambasanyan, that a lot of people don't know, actually contested on an NCP ticket to win the parliamentary elections in Fonyi. And after he lost, I guess he got frustrated, so he went the rebellious route. And before the coup happened, people saw him around Sirif Diba's house. So it was thought that Sirif was part of it. So there was a political component to it. And Dabo's prominence in that was because he was defending Sirif and his NCP supporters like Kemes and Jammeh, who were accused of being part of the 1981 coup. Kukoy Sambasanya was never tried or defended. Um, People like Danso that were charged, actually the only person that was killed in the Gambia by firing squad legally was part of those coup plotters. So a lot of those rebels were tried and sentenced. I think one of them was actually killed by Jame into when he did that mile 2-9 thing. So I wanted to set that record straight. When Dabo was called in, he came to defend Sirif Diba and his NCP co-accused persons. That was a political angle and not defending those who took up arms to um, try to topple a democratically elected government. On the other aspect of whether UDP will win, we are confident that UDP will win because a lot of issues are happening in that country. And instead of us focusing on that, Mr. Jeng is trying to focus or shift our attention to, oh, Barrow build this road project, that road project. And it was mentioned at the beginning. When Yahya Jammeh came between 1994 and 1996, in order to create political capital for himself, he embarked on those visible projects. The Arch 22 was built, which was a decorative thing, has no value. I was in tourism. We used to take tourists there, but maybe 4 or 5 per day or so. So it has no economic value to the country. He did that. He built all these schools around the country, but look at the state of our education. So he jumped into all these things. Why? Because he wants people to look at something and say, oh, Jammeh did this, Jammeh did that, so we should vote for him. And he turned around and reneged on his promise to serve as a military transition leader to take the country from Jawara and push it to the next democracy, which he didn't do. He resigned. People told him to resign, which if I said I will not do it, I'm not going to do it. But anyway, that's water on the bridge. Barrow is also doing the same thing. Oh, because, he said 3 years, but people want him to run or because he did this. No. Where are we as a country? So, for example, for now, let us look at the numbers. We know Barrow came on a coalition ticket. So we cannot credit anything to him or any party. Let's just say coalition government, that's to decide. After the coalition, we had the National Assembly elections, and the results of that were party-based. UDP had 37% of those votes, which is 31 seats in the National Assembly, total votes of 138,000 that the UDP garnered. The next runner-up, or the second person that came after the UDP, was Gambia Democratic Congress, GDC. They had 5 seats, 17%, which is 64,000. So between 138,000 and 64,000 votes, which GDC and APRC came in second because they both had 5 seats. If you put their totals together, it is still less than what the UDP has. These are the second and third place. PDIS came in third with 30,000, so 8%, 6%. So if we look at it, how much of that do you think UDP is going to lose between 2017 and now as a party base?
Well,
So
Mr.
based on those numbers, I know he cited Jokadu and Nyamina, but how much resources
And
did
incumbency as well. He cited incumbency.
right?
Yeah,
He cited
yeah.
incumbency, so they're using state resources, and we
My,
know nobody.
my question to you is: did UDP get that number on its own, or did UDP get that number with the backing of the incumbent?
UDP got that number. The incumbent actually got into that seat because of UDP. The UDP's backing is the blessing that he
No,
wrote
the,
on
the, the
to become the
question is,
president.
did the UDP get the
Yes,
numbers
UDP
with
did
the
that. But
backing of the
we know
event?
your man is prone to bragging and saying, I did this by myself. Even the TRRC, he said he set it up by himself. We know he's prone to that. But that's UDP's effort. And we're seeing it right now. We're all living witness to it, what UDP is doing around the country. No hamlet is spared, no village is spared, no home is. We go everywhere and talk to the people, and they result in the votes that we get. So he can say he sponsored UDP all he wants. He even said he sponsored PDIS and the whole coalition thing. So he's a man, unfortunately, I know we say we insult him, but that's a lie, and we cannot get behind that. If somebody lies to you once, twice, there's no way you should be believing that person. So I guess what we're going to do is have to see after this December 4th, whether he was the one whose blessing got the UDP where it needed to get to, or it was UDP's own efforts that got them there.
Right.
But like I said, when we look at those numbers, we know the UDP as it stands, based on the most recent numbers, which was last National Assembly, they have the majority, and that majority will translate. So we can talk about the power, the incumbency, and all that, but that also comes with a tagline. And what is that tagline? For example, we just emerged out of a tyrannical rule of Jammeh after being fearful of his tyranny for so many years and the division that he caused in the country. What happened? People were looking forward to reforms, and Jammeh terrorized the people. The first priority of the new state that the people expected was to restore faith in the citizens. Number one, civil service reform, because we know Jammeh rewarded loyalty, which is why people always crying about tribalism, tribalism. Jammeh put people in places that had no business being in those places. We also David Colley at the TRRC. We
Not
know
a
for
mass.
a fact
Yeah,
now. No,
this
no,
is
no.
the
I'm,
what?
I'm just trying to. I'm just trying to make a
Okay.
point. We know for a fact that he was put in that place not because of his qualification or competence, because he, primary education or secondary education. So when civil service reform was to take place, what did they say? Tribalism, tribalism, tribe. So Barrow solved that. Why? Because he's thinking that they're targeting a certain tribe, but that's not the case. So civil service reform, that's off the table. What next? Security sector reform. We're hearing Langton Montamba and the lies going into Fonyi, injecting fear into people, telling them that this is also going to take a tribal line. So security sector reform, that is also on shelf. Why are these reforms necessary? Because we knew back in the day under Jammeh, the civil service operated on his whims. No rule of law, no code of conduct, nothing. What Jammeh wanted was what happened. So in order to avoid that, we need a civil service that is grounded in ethics, that is grounded in the rule of law, and operating
Grounded
based on
in
the
ethics, grounded
yeah.
in rule of law. We'll come
So
to that later.
okay, just to sum up, Barrow flouted all that. And now he is expecting people to not look at that, look at the roads are built, look at Hakalang, which, like he should have left it the way it was. Our people are
No,
suffering. I know that for a fact. So,
Mr. Mas, with all due respect, we had Dabo said the only reason he appointed Ablai Bojang as the ambassador to South Africa was because he was the only Jola.
no, 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 no,
So
no, no.
he appointed.
That's
No,
when
no,
we when no, 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 no. When we build our
no,
when we build our arguments on false premises, that is
no.
when
It's not for
here
because
is what no,
no
it's a
that
false premise. What Dabo said, just like
what
the 3 years
yeah
table that people are saying. Let me get this clear. What Dabo said
yeah.
is exactly what I was just saying here. Jammeh rewarded loyalty, and he believed that people who are from the same ethnic group as him would be more loyal to him than anybody else. That's what Jammeh believed. This
So
is not to say, no, no, no. Just
why
listen.
did he,
Just listen.
yeah
This is why Jammeh did that. I'm not saying that the Jola are loyal to Jammeh or whatever. No,
yeah.
Jammeh in his mind thinks that if you speak the same language from the same region, from the same ethnic group, you'll be more loyal to him. So he filled the positions with all those loyalties based on no genuine reason except for a few. When that change happened, two things were going to stand out. One, people will feel disenfranchised because suddenly they will realize, okay, APRC is gone. Nobody who is affiliated with the APRC will ever be anything in this country, because we all saw that. Barrow was asked on the platform, would you hire anybody from APRC? I said, no, I have people that are already competent. So if that happens, that segment who are supporting and loyal to APRC will feel disenfranchised. They will feel that this change does not belong to them. That is a recipe for disaster. So what Mr. Dabo is saying is, let us look within there, since this is a coalition and what we want is for a better Gambia. Let's look in there and identify competent people that we can bring on board, and look at ethnic diversity as well, because if we
No, no.
create a government right now,
You
what
are
we're
trying
seeing,
to no,
no, no, no, no, that's what Mr.
Mr.
Daba said. Ablai Bojang is
No,
one of those people that if we bring him on board, uh, what
yeah.
has he done wrong in the civil service? What has he been complicit of? you know. So if we bring him in, Fonyi people will see themselves in it, Jolas will see themselves in it, APRC will see themselves in it, not because we are rewarding tribes or anything, but because we want all Gambians to feel included. He didn't say he's the only Jola or the only Fonyi.
No, because
he said this is one person we can bring in. He will be like an unifying person.
You stated in your deliberation that the main objective in the first place when change was effected was to rectify the system.
Right.
Is it not what you said? And in rectifying this system, you spoke about the civil service sector reform and the security sector reform. And you also highlighted that within these two sectors, Jammeh, appointed people who had no reason to be there.
Right.
And so to reform those sectors, then it means we have to pluck out all those people who had no reasons to be there. And then we have also seen all the ambassadors that were appointed by Jammeh, except a handful, were recalled. And those who were, nominated or appointed in their positions, 90% of them came from UDP background.
90%.
So how do you explain that?
Okay. Before we further go, let me come to you, Mr. I'll come back to that. Mr. Tamba, have you got what it takes to win with your coalition?
Oh, absolutely. And why am I saying this?
How?
Right. Well, first and foremost, who was Mama Kande, a former MP of the APRC? He has got the experience of knowing how a government runs administratively, because that's what parliament is the legislative branch of the government.
In fact, who's going to lead if we win? If the coalition win, who's going to lead? Is it
Mama Kande is going to be? Mama Kande is going to be the president, hands down. And Yahya Jammeh's 22 years experience, he will enhance Mama Kande's rule positively in 95% of the positives that Jammeh achieved while he was in government. You see, people have drummed up so much negativity against Yahya Jammeh to a point where outside of Gambia, they masked all the good things that Jammeh did. And there's no doubting. I heard Natama saying UDP respects the rule of law, or the Arch 22 of little significance. You know, people say that when they want to belittle your achievement in government. Arch 22 is not of little significance. It's a bit like saying to London people that the Big Ben at the House of Parliament, Westminster, is of little significant value just because it tolls at every hour, once, twice, 3 times. Or people got digital clocks now. They don't need that toll clock there to be tolling every time, bang, bang. But these are the things that carry people. When you're selling your country, people need to be able to see the landmarks. Natamas maybe is a PPP generation baby, just like myself. All right. We haven't seen anything magnificent in the Gambia before 1994. So when we saw stuff,
that's where the problem lies. Because in every country, you need to have priorities. The Gambia at independence has absolutely nothing.
Yeah, but
you know that the British government, after independence, used to subsidize the Gambia to actually be able to maintain a civil service.
You cannot
with £1 million.
Infrastructure.
You cannot neglect it, but when you need to build the economy, when you need to build an economy and you need people to have a decent livelihood, that's the first priority. Instead of building those roads, people on the streets and begging, why would you build a Arch 22
Mr.
when you needed to build a hospital or something?
Yeah, Mr. Mas, it goes together throughout.
No, it doesn't go together. Get the priorities right.
Throughout Yahya Jammeh, there are priorities, and Yahya Jammeh indeed prioritized our health. He's the first person to build 14 major or minor hospitals or health centers in the Gambia. Gambia government never built one single hospital. Yahya Jammeh prioritized. Yahya Jammeh is the first person to institute a medical school in the Gambia and train our homegrown doctors, who are now some of them resident doctors in the remotest of the countryside. It never happened before. Again, coming back to Mr. Jammeh's question, infrastructure creates jobs, creates landmarks, creates the roads that we have. We never had tarmac we never actually had tarmac in the Gambia before Jammeh came. We had
no, that's not true. Let's not say that. That's not true.
Okay, so which one do we have? Caraba Avenue? Caraba Avenue? White Cocoa Shell Road between Banjul and Serakunda?
Basesoma was the tarmac.
Oh, come on. Exactly. That was White Cocoa Shell put on tar. What we're talking about, A grade.
That-
What we're talking about
That
is
was
A.
that
What,
was
okay,
built by
what I'm
Balfour Beatty,
referring
and
to
it
here.
was the best Gambia ever had.
Oh,
That was
for
built by
goodness.
Balfour Beatty,
Oh,
and that
for
was
the
the
love
best
of
Gambia
God,
ever
Suleiman
had.
Jag. I can't believe. Okay, now coming back to this, Mama Kande is already development oriented. Mama Kande is providing scholarships. Education is a priority to him. Mama Kande is already supporting people in terms of health-wise, medical bills and other things. Health is a priority to him. Mama Kande is already prioritizing clean and portable drinking water for Gambian population across the country. He's doing that already. Mama Kande knows how a government works administratively and in terms of legislation. Mama Kande has been around the corridors of power. Mama Kande has always been the first to provide disaster
Being around the corridors of power or being it, you have to be in it to win it. So being around, would that make any evidence to say?
Parliament is corridors of power. Government has got 3 arms. If you've been in Parliament, or around State House for 10 years, what more do you need? What more powers do you need to have some experience? And then Mama Kande is the first.
Doubting
A
Mama
quick
Kande's
question. A quick
qualifications
question for
or
you,
experience as
Mr.
a
Tamba.
for him to be
Yes.
the
A quick
likely
question
winner.
for you.
Yeah.
I will admit that
Yeah.
Mama Kande is the only opposition leader that
Yeah.
contributes towards building
National
boreholes
development. Yeah.
in the
But
country.
Mama Kande was in the
He's the
Gambia
only.
before 2016. Did he do any of those?
Let me just finish. No, let me just finish. Even if he didn't do those before 2016, but he's the only one we have seen of late doing it.
Yeah.
But
And
that's a
whenever
tragedy
there's
in a country where we have a sitting government and you have private
Dabo
citizens
did actually
sponsoring this
build a
stuff.
goat
Yeah,
bridge in Bundung.
yeah,
Dabo built
but
a
let me
goat bridge
just
in Bundung somewhere.
let me just finish. You know, give the devil its due.
Yeah.
In as much as I don't see eye to eye with Kande on political lenses, but I must admit, his greatness in certain aspects. That makes me human. He is the only one opposition leader that we have seen when there is a disaster, he would be the first on the scene to do that. But
Yeah.
on the other side of the coin, when duty of care to national development comes and Mama Kande is called upon, he always shy away. And a big example is in 2016, when everybody wanted all the political leaders to come together, to form a coalition, he said no, despite
Yeah,
all
but
warnings.
that's not.
So
Look, that's a
how would you explain that?
No, but Mama Kande himself has got his political independence. He doesn't have to come and join a botched coalition, which by all accounts was constituted, and the leader of the coalition was selected via a rogue or sham convention. Mama Kande doesn't want to be part of that sham stuff. This is why Mama Kande stands heads and shoulders above all of them. Because when it comes to being dodgy, Mama Kande doesn't go in that direction. He knew that the election convention, the memorandum of understanding was dodgy.
Yeah,
The
Mr.
election
Ba,
was
please.
Can I just
No,
why he didn't
no,
go.
Yes,
He
Bakari,
didn't-
Bakari, I'll let him come in here. Can I let Bakari come in? Yes, Bakari, come in.
Thank you. I think I'm the forgotten one here.
No,
Listen.
Bakari, you are free to interject if you think you
Yeah.
have a thoughts, because next you're on the line. You're next, and then
All right.
you'll be followed by Ahmed.
I just
What I'm
just
saying
wanted
here
to
is you can interject anytime if you think you have something to say, or if you have
Cool.
something to talk about, or to sell your agendas or things that your party have done. You can go ahead and interject anytime.
Thank you for that. I will just do a quick interjection, but hopefully when my turn comes, I don't know, because I was a bit considerate when it was my first time to speak. I think I spoke under 2 minutes or 3 minutes, so it would be nice to know when I come how many minutes I've got. But just on the interjection with Tamba and Mr. Jeng, what they're trying to say here, I think nobody can downplay the significance of the Doi leadership contribution as an opposition to the Gambia in terms of creating awareness and educating Gambians. Mr. Jeng has reference to that. He used to read a lot of the Foroya newspaper during the days when things were not really known to the Gambia. You to look at the Foroya, it's like a citizen advice bureau in the UK. Regardless of party affiliation and all that, people go there to raise their injustice grievance. And then the PDI's leadership would take that upon and fight it for them. We've seen it in 1994 when they fought that degree number 4. We've seen it in the student demonstration in 2000 when they were the first opposition to go and try and bring a peace to that. We've seen it in the witch hunting. So the boreholes and all that stuff people are mentioning here is good, it's appreciative. But then the knowledge and the awareness and the leadership that the PDI has placed In fact, again, talking about Nyako nursery, because we know the importance of early education into a child. In fact, if Jame didn't see that was allocated to the Nyakwe primary, probably we would have had a Nyakwe high school and a Nyakwe technical school. So, I mean, I hear Mr. Jeng talking about here, like the incumbents is using these projects as an advantage is because all these politicians are keeping the electorate ignorant so that they can vote for them. Whereas PDIS is trying to enlighten and educate our electorate to know what belongs to them, what their rights is, and what they can do. That's what I wanted to interject, but I'm looking forward to my opportunity.
I think Mr. Bai, you stated.
Oh, sorry. Just
Yeah,
to add
sorry,
to what Mr.
one
Ba
minute,
was
yeah.
saying, basically, we have a wrong notion of what the role of a political party is in a country. It is not to go and build projects for people. That's the role of the government because that's where they pay their taxes to. That's what the government is supposed to do. So it's an indictment of the sitting government when no, what he's saying is like you create awareness in the people to see that the government is failing them or this is their rights, like PDIS is doing. I've long maintained that when it comes to politics in the Gambia, the debate should be between the ideology, PDIS, UDP. These have been the long-standing parties, and when it comes to ideology and policies, that's what we should be debating. But all these others, like Tamba was trying to tout Mama Kande as being, one second, as being a former National Assembly member. When those April's killers were indemnified, Mama Kende was in the National Assembly. Let's go back to the record and see how he voted on that indictment issue. When Jame wanted people to be indemnified after they were indicted for killing children, Mama Kande was in the National Assembly. Let's pull up his voting record and see whether he voted to support that or not support that. That alone for me is enough. If you are touting him as being in the National Assembly and he has experience, Kemison was in the National Assembly. We know how close he is to Mr. Dabo. He'll be one of his advisors. Bibi Dabo was a vice president, finance minister, a commissioner, a diplomat. He's endorsed Mr. Dabo. These were the people who will be there. And Mr. Dabo has 40 plus years of experience. So these things that we're touting are not something to be touted because other people have the same. That's not a qualifier to say, okay, he's going to win the election because of that.
All right, quickly, Mr. Mas, picking on what you said and Mr. Ba, you said in governance, picking the priorities is quite essential instead of doing, the insignificant, referencing the I-22. Am I right?
Right, that the priority was why do we need touch when people
all right, okay. And then on Mr. Bai, you started your deliberation by saying DOI came about not to win elections, but to raise awareness, to inform and to empower the people. If that is so, personally, and I think as political beings, we should not be static. We should not be too rigid in political dogma or philosophy. In our generations, in as much as we want to build and present the best of policies, but as opposition, I believe we need to show to the electorate that this is what we can do outside government. And when you entrust us with governance, we can do even better. But if you say as an opposition, all that you can restrict yourself is to sell policies, is to tell stories, is to oppose government, that means you do not have any experience on hand on deck, like Tamba is referencing with Kande. Kande had experience on governance. Kande had experience on governance, unlike Dabo. Dabo had never been an MP. Dabo has never been an MP. So when it comes to entrusting governance, I would rather entrust to Kande than Dabo because Kande is more experienced when it comes to governance than Dabo. So here, Barrow has seen this thing, and Barrow is
and Kande has got a bigger development record than Dabo. For 2 years that Dabo is in office, he only built one wooden bridge in Bundung. We call it a goat bridge. That's all he did.
Can I just come in?
Yes, Bakari, come in.
Good. I'm glad Suleiman came into that segment there. Like Nata have just said, opposition is always a government in waiting, and how you act and the policies you've got and how you can go about implementing or talking to the electors about those policies is going to determine what kind of government you would have in place. We've seen our PDI's leadership records in the House of Parliament in both terms of government. You cannot question that. I didn't say that PDIs just came to educate people. They don't want to win election. But In anything that you do, you have to prioritize what is needed most. We can all agree in this panel here, the incumbent is capitalizing on the ignorance of the electorate. And what PDI is trying to do first is to educate those electorates so that it would make it easy for them to make that informed decision of who they would vote for. We don't go and sell people false promises and all that. And we are not entrusted with our national coffers. It's the president who is entrusted with our national coffers, with his executive. But what I'm trying to say is, if someone gives you the knowledge to know what you need to do, who you are, and what belongs to you, and if someone is just trying to fool you and put some few dollars in front of you, then obviously we can see which significant one played the most part. That was the part I wanted to explain.
Exactly.
Okay,
And that's just to interject there, Mustafa. That's what I was trying to say exactly. It's not the responsibility of opposition parties to be building infrastructure for people in their communities. When disaster happens, you can use your influence, like when we had Babala Buntungo because of the COVID situation, use your influence, garner your supporters, let them contribute, and then get provisions to people. Those kinds of situations we understand. But you're talking about going around sinking boreholes. Where do you get the money from? That's going to be the next question. Nobody entrusts you with any resources. You're going to use it out of your own personal inclination to do it. So that's why I was saying between 2016 or before 2016, where I was Kanda when people needed boreholes and stuff, so those are insignificant. Thank you, Mustafa.
Right, thank you. If I may come to you, Bakari. Bakari, you think PDOIS has got what it takes to win 2021 come December next week? You think you can win?
I'm a very honest person, and I'm also a very realistic person. The challenge is huge, but we can do it. It's winnable. And I can tell you why I believe that. I'm not going to downplay the significance of us winning and the challenge ahead of us. But I've just listened to both of my brothers talking here since independence.
No, but just be precise. Do you think Doi would win or not?
Hold on, Suleiman, I have not interjected a lot. I think I was the first one to speak over an hour ago. You both had your chance. So I think I should have at least 2 minutes to put a case forward.
You got all the time in the world, Bakari, go on.
Thank you, Mr. Jame. I believe you are not dictatorial like my NPP brother here. Look.
Mr.
The reason why I believe PDOIS is going to win, I said I was born in Banjul, but I grew up in rural Gambia. And then I spent most of my adulthood in Banjul, and I also travel in the UK. I have not lived in the Gambia for the last 20 years, but I used to travel to the Gambia at least twice or sometimes even more in a year. And I've seen something that have changed. Since 1994 to now, we're talking about over 26 years more. And if you look at the Gambian population, over 60% of it is youth and women. And nowadays, most of our youth has been to school. Most of our youths are having access to social media. And then if you look at the way we're politicking right now in the Gambia and you compare it to the other parties, in fact, it's funny. UDP had a 5-point agenda, CA come with 10. I think GDC and FPRC, the only agenda is Barrow Jammeh calling from Equatorial Guinea to give them a bush, yeah? But if you look at how PDOIS is doing it, we're going to the people and we're going to them with a honest and a consistent message. We're not playing around with the messaging here. We are telling Gambians, like, look, for 56 years of independence, look at how the country is. Each and every Gambian watching here or talking in this panel today, we have a debt of $28 million on our heads. Look at the amount of $28 million and ask ourselves, has the governments we had previously did something which is significant to that $28,000 debt on my head? It's a no. And what we are trying to tell Gambians is like, look, Gambia is not poor. It's just that our resources have been poorly managed since independence. And in Mandinka Wiki, Mobela Nafulo, Anyanta Mobele Navala. This is our message to Gambians. How are we going to win the election is through that honest message that we're giving to Gambians. I've seen and I've followed all the political campaigns throughout the breadth of the Gambia. And one thing I always noticed and picked up when the PDOIS is doing a campaign, and please follow, You hardly see them talking about any opposition party. You hardly see them talking about what has happened. They are telling Gambians now the reality of the country and what they can do to that country and for us when they are entrusted. And that's highlighted in our that transformative agenda. Look, for example, I'll give an example here. And this is why I think PDIS is going to win. Look at that EU fishing deal we signed with the EU. We're getting 500,000 euros from that. The EU is getting over 8 million euros from that. If you convert that into dollars easily, just the EU fishing deal, just our rivers, we can create 30,000 jobs for our youths, which are paying over $20,000. I did that calculation this morning. So when it comes to the youth, when it comes to the women, our message is there to help remove that poverty gap and create that job and make sure a Gambia is a prosperous country, not just for the few, but for everybody. Hence why the cooperative agenda, because you can't take something that belongs to the whole community and you get one individual or two individuals enjoying it. What's that gonna cause again is civil unrest. And the youths now are very aware. And that's why I believe if you look at the PDI's campaign and their message, we are very hopeful.
You think
yes,
your message, is it going across?
110%. I live in the UK. My mom still refuses to live in the Combos. I speak to her on a daily basis in the provinces. I've watched the political campaign from Banjul all the way to the rural area. And I see how people are now receiving the PDI's leadership and their messages and their campaign slogans. Look, people might see the crowds. It play a part. I'm not going to downplay that here. But we've seen during the US presidential election, Trump campaign versus Biden campaign. We've seen in even 2016 in the Gambia when Jammeh went for his nomination versus the coalition. So sometimes this psychology is played that PDIs don't have the crowd. The crowds are not the crowds that are going inside the polling booth. It's the message that you give the electorates that helps convince them when they walk into that room alone, they're going to make that decision. And that decision, I think, rightly or wrongly, for me, I believe is the PDIs.
Right. Ahmed. Can you hear me, Ahmed?
Yes.
What have you got to turn around? What have you got to turn around? Can you tell us?
Yeah. Before I talk about that, I want to give credit to the PDIs for being the only party that is investing in political education of the citizens. It is rather unfortunate the colonials were never interested in civic education anyway, because that would have curtailed their stay here in the Gambia. And Jawara took a leap from that with all what he achieved. He did on political education. Now we are also suffering. And because of his lack of investment in political education, he continued to democratically participate himself. Then we have Yahya, he's never interested in democracy. So PDIs, they have to be given credit. But what I cannot get my head around and what stopped me from doing the PDIs is the Ayatollah culture. You look at this party, for the longest time, it's two people. It's almost synonymous with them. And just like the UDP, I don't think in this modern age, nobody should be allowed to own a political party. Maximum anybody should be allowed to lose an election should be 2 terms, nothing more, nothing less. Well, it can be less, but not more than that. Anything not more than that, you are converting yourself to the democracy you're trying to perpetuate. Yes, I think their message was getting across faster before the proliferation of the social media. But now with all these online TV stations from different political parties and individuals, I think UDP's message is being drowned out. It's not getting across where we go and buy the PDI's paper and all that. But that aside, I think I don't think they can win. I think the only realistic party, honestly, I'm talking from the bottom of heart, I follow the turnaround movement, so they are all the way to the URR, the Sarakule community.
Yeah. Everyone would say that. Every party supporter would say that, Mr. Majam. But for what I'm trying to ask here is, what have you got to turn around? What do you want to turn around?
turn around from mediocrity, to turn around from corruption, to turn away from corruption, to turn away from mediocrity, to turn away from political personalities and profanities and all that, and to turn towards doubling our GDP, living to average Gambians, to restore the national pride to Gambians, and also to tell Gambians to love themselves. This is what we are turning towards to. And we are different, and in all sense of the way. These guys bring international experience.
Yeah, you mentioned that, Ahmed. You mentioned that. What have you got to offer to the Gambians? You mentioned the international experience and all that, but what have you got to offer to the Gambians as a turnaround? What are you turning around to offer to the Gambians?
Mustafa, you will agree with me that there are a lot of wastage as far as our governance is concerned. That wastage has to be curtailed so we can invest in other part of the world. We are other part of our economy.
Yeah, what are some of these wastages? Can you try and pinpoint them out for us? Like what are some of these wastages?
Yeah, for example, my workplace school will come up at 11 for work, and it doesn't matter to them. The first thing they will do, they will take their teacup that they went for breakfast when people are waiting. And just last Monday, I went to the curator in the Justice Ministry to work out my dad's inheritance. The entire office went for a funeral, not a single one left in that office. And I found the room was filled with people waiting. That is complete wastage. That shouldn't happen. Why not one or two people go, the rest continue opening the office? You have people like 10 people doing work, which one person can do. And we have to digitize our government as well, so that everything we do can be transparent. People can see. Mustafa is not rocket science to introduce templates in all these government departments. You see people going to work at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and by 2 o'clock they all leave. That is wasted. We are paying people for something that they don't do. So these are simple technologies we can employ and cut all those wastage. And also you come to this tax waiver they give to these international organizations or businesses. Who benefiting from that? Nobody, because these same company, they are paying our citizens pittance. We can stop all this, and we'll earn lot of money. We don't need new grants. It's just about turning around those simple, obvious wastages into a resource that can.
So turn around. Your key,
Mr. Manjang. Can I ask you one question?
Mr. James, if you let me finish this.
Okay.
Turnaround, your target is, or the reason of this turnaround is to change people's attitude towards work. Is that what you're trying to say?
Not only work, but everything have to be turned around from our educational system. That's from the kindergarten. We will teach Gambian kids to love country first. We will make sure that the tribal issues they are desensitized, from nursery level. If people go with that, what they see first is country. Then we have this communal sense of belonging and communal culture. To look at Mustafa, Gambia, we can't say it's not developing. It's developing. You go to the pipelines, you go to the vigilance, you go to Brufut Heights. You see buildings, you go into a building, you stand there and force and but look at the street they are using. But they care about the communal issues. You go to the RBTA, that's what we have. People are paying up to tens of thousands in medical bills in private hospitals here, while we have a national one, which if we develop, we can save. So these are some that we want to turn around completely. It's not only education, but our mindset. The Gambian mindset have to be turned around completely to love community, to love country first before self. I think if we are successful,
yeah, quickly, Mr. Jame, if I could come in, Mustafa.
Yeah, go on.
Mr. Manjang, on the last presidential debate between Mr. Fall and Mr. Salah, when Mr. Fall began to speak about his market policy, he mentioned about privatizing our public institutions, such as NAWEC, etc. And now we have seen Mr. Fall has most of his investments outside the country. So how are we sure that if Mr. Fall becomes the president, he hasn't got already lined up investors out who are non-Gambians that he would sell our public institutions to?
But there will be no same like selling NAWEC. Selling NAWEC to the Senegalese Sonatel, but for the longest time.
No, the question is, Mr. Fall,
and you look at the Gamtel. Gamtels, when we were going to school, it's only the converse to the South African National Telecommunication Company. Everything is breaking down when it comes to this national institution. I think privatizing them will give you will bring that kind of competition.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried about privatizing these institutions. My question is, because Mr. Fall's investments are all outside the Gambia, if he becomes the president, is he not going to sell our public institutions to some of his colleagues outside, the Gambia, instead of to Gambians or people who had Gambia's interests at heart? Because for me, he hasn't got Gambia's interests at heart, because all his investments are outside the Gambia. He has not invested in the Gambia, and he wants to privatize our public institutions. So that means if he has the opportunity, he would, sell those public institutions to enrich himself and his friends outside.
Let me come, since you keep me mention his investment under Yaya Jammeh, we know the risk involved. We know the risk involved investing in the Gambia, and this guy happened to invest almost the same time in Senegal. We've seen the tops of this country. Mustafa Njai was flying high when Yaya Jammeh pounced on him and made the conditions so terrible he has to leave. And Gambia lose during those processes. We know what Mustafa Njai would have achieved if he stayed for all the years he spent in Burkina Faso and Mali. So these were the kind of, so that was the like of somebody Fall to go and start somewhere, and that is reasonable enough. Now, under somebody Fall, he said his government, the law will be the queen of his government. It is left to Gambian people to challenge position. Look, he's not.
Can I just come in there?
Yes, Bakari, come in. Interject anytime, Bakari. You can interject anytime. If you let yes, if you let Bakari come. Okay, Bakari, yes.
So it's left to our
just waiting for Ahmad to finish.
And they can challenge it.
Okay, all right. Okay, Bakari.
My interjection there, hence the debate was mentioned, and Brother Manjan said something that I just have to clarify first. There is this stigma like PDIs is very rigid, the leaders are very principled. But here we've got a leader for since 2006. He has always went and formed coalition to rescue us. In fact, in 2016, we could have easily backed out and not support Barrow, but we needed a regime change. He followed that through. So, I mean, that stigma or that tag to say PDIs is very rigid, they don't want to work with other people, that's very telling because the evidence doesn't back that up. And secondly, just what I wanted to say, here is,
can I come? I think Mr. Bar misunderstood me that.
Yeah.
Can I come?
Yes, Ahmed, if you know,
within themselves,
yeah.
We know PDOIs, I think they are 30-something years. It's only two people who are in the leadership. That's the issue that I have. I don't say they are not rigid enough. In fact, that's one of my affinity to them. They are always willing to rescue Gambia, and they are always willing to compromise. But when it comes to the leadership of the PDOIs, it's only these two. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
yes,
but
we were aware of NAD. And also, we are aware of what happened in 2016. And that is completely down to lack of political education, people affinity to their political parties like country. Because you cannot say a room which contains Halifa Sallah and Adam Barrow, and we end up picking Adam Barrow. This is where the problem is, because there's political education. People were always supporting the side of their political parties. But if people were civically prepared properly, they would have taken the right decision. That
Okay.
Okay, can I just ask a question?
Yes, Ahmed, if you let Bakari come one more time. Yes, Bakari.
I just want to ask a question because Brother Esa is a lawyer and in fact a very good lawyer. And during the debate, I had something that really, for me, was like I really want a clarification for that. In the Gambian constitution, access to healthcare is guaranteed. It's in the constitution. It's not telling about it. And then part of that debate was when Khalifa mentioned about having a health post at each village. Brother Esa response was that's just kind of like over promising that you cannot deliver. So one, if something is in a constitution and we've got someone like a lawyer who is vying to be our president, is kind of not trying so hard to implement that for me it's a bit of
Right.
a
Would
issue
you
for me.
say Mr. Fall is credible? Would you say he's credible? Would you?
I would not question his credibility. You know what I would question is this is why sometimes I have a soft spot for my yellow cousins. Yeah, when the battles were really really hard, those leaders stayed in the Gambia and they had the brunt of those scars. For brothers Esa, what I is they went out when the battle was really really hard, and they came back when the battle was already done.
Oh, okay.
And now
So
they just want to
Esa,
tell us.
would you
Yeah,
say
that's the other thing I was
Esa ran
gonna.
away? He ran away when he was tough, and then he came back when he's soft. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna add to.
The timing is very convenient for me because where were they? I mean, Barrow used this line, but where were they when we needed them? I mean, we've seen that in his documents that he submitted during his nomination paper. The guy is a billionaire, where the likes of Uncle Khalifa, the likes of Uncle Dabo, they are half of the time poorer than them because all their energy, all their resources, they invested in the Gambia in rescuing us. So for me, to be quite honest, I would rather vote for UDP than vote for someone like SRFAL. And that's where the credibility lies.
That's what I was gonna ask Ahmed. Like, he sounded tough and how he went out of the country because of the tyrannical regime that we had back home and
Why
all
did he
that
run
was
away?
going on. So what I wanted to ask is, now that there's democracy in the country, is SRFAL on a mission, or does he have any plans to divest from those countries and bring those investments to the Gambia to create opportunity for Gambian people? That's one question that I wanted to ask him. Just like Mr. Bao was saying, when the going was tough, we know Khalifa, we know Sidia, we know Mr. Dabo, who had to he lost all contracts that we had with government parastatals because he formed an opposition to the current government. Being in the UDP, I know he had personal investments to be able to see the party go forward. It cost him personally. So granted, there was tyranny, nobody's investment was secure in the Gambia, but now that we have democracy back in the country, is Isafal willing to divest from those countries that he's invested in, bring those investments to the Gambia, create opportunities for young people?
Is he willing to bring back his invested back in the Gambia, Mr. Manyam? Is Mr. Fan?
Yes, of course, that investment have to come back to Gambia. But what is clear, nobody can deny was that business, it was not conducive for those kind of businesses. I quote only one example, but there are more. As he himself alluded to, Lawyer Dabo lose all his contract because of article politics. But you cannot compare these three with SRFAL. SRFAL was at the beginning of his career, and Dabo and Lawyer and Hanif were at the twilight of their career, and they decided to go into politics. At that point, inside with this dictatorship, by virtue of their family status and all that, and expression of their business, it would not have been conducive for them to put them and leave. But this was conducive for the like of SRFAL and my like, and Nakamas like, and this Mr. Jeng like, and also Mr. Bass. We are outside the country, trying to getting ourselves better so that we can return and contribute. If that coincides with the demise of the dictator, then you cannot use that for against anybody, not to contest or not to get involved. That have nothing to do with the credibility of the individual, but it's just the circumstances that it happened. This guy was at the beginning of his career when he had come up, and just like all of us, we went further because there was no university which was credible at the time in the Gambia. We all have to go out and bet ourselves. So come back, something come back. And we have to be predictor as by Falco coming.
Yeah, what I'm saying, Ahmed, what I'm trying to, my point is he willing to bring back all those establishments or businesses he has back abroad to the Gambia for the Gambian people to benefit? He ran away in it.
No, he didn't run away. He went to work internationally, just like me, just like Natamas, to develop himself and work, just like Mr. Jeng. So he didn't run away. He didn't run away, and he happened to be successful, but it was not conducive for him. It doesn't make any sense for him to come and invest his money in the Gambia here. What it end up being destroyed. But now that the democracy is there, we have to be ready to keep players who bring that democracy.
Who are those? Who are those? Who are those? If I may ask, who are those key players? Mr. Manyang, who are those key players?
With all
that's why we will tell you that was the Halifa Sal as the city agendas. We have to be honest to acknowledge their provision.
So it's just Halifa Sallah and Sidi Jada, you would say?
Yeah, with all due respect, Mr. Mustafa.
Mustafa, you are aware of our own personal situation. I don't have to move when I'm from the Gambia. But because of the threat on my life, I have to leave because I was not going too bad in MRC. I just won a project of $6.5 million US, you know, to look at the effects of this pneumococcal vaccine in the Gambia. But my personal security was as a race. I had to find work somewhere. That doesn't mean I ran away. And among the best, very first people to try to return back when this coalition government went, but it turned out the I don't know how to call it, a very government. We cannot get.
How do you mean? How do you mean, Mr. Manyang? How do you mean Terry Kafo government? Which one is Terry Kafo government, please? We need some clarification about which one is it, Terry Kafo government?
The coalition government ended up. It was taken over by certain interest groups.
Oh, so the coalition government was a Terry Kafo government. But for clarity's sake, the coalition government was a Terry Kafo government then?
No, it turned out to be a Terry Kafo government. It was still like that when initially when government was called. You know, you cannot call it a coalition anyway because the key players were already frustrated and they decided, you know what, it's not worth getting in. And those who take the risk and go in that, the OJ Jallos, they all end up being silent. Even the GFC leader, who is now very confused, and Honorable Maifati also end up being sad. So we know what it ends up being. It's the same group of people who fall out and they are fighting the fiercest battle.
So you think as
let me come in here very quick. Let me
because that will stop this back and forth political dogfight, which we don't need right now. Gambia need to move. I've been going to Guinea-Bissau since 2006, almost 2-3 times in a year, but they've overtaken us by a mile now. So
that's very true.
When we come to human development.
What is true?
Guinea-Bissau is overtaking Gambia in many respects economically, and Gambia is now ranked second to the last somewhere in the sub-region.
Second to last NPP in government. Bakari,
NPP taking us back.
Please, you feel free to come in anytime, Bakari. I want to get the balance, please. Come in anytime. And then PDOIS. Was Mr. Salah and CD not offered positions to come and join to work with the government? Do you know?
You see, that's a mystery which is quite funny. We've had Anti-Ajiyam Seka, the UDP #2, when she was questioned. She said, since during the campaign time, both CD and Halifa stated equivalently like they won't be taking a ministerial post. We had Barrow himself had an interview where he said he wanted them to join his cabinet, but unfortunately, because of principle, they decide not to. And this is where Gambians who are not aware how government works are getting it wrong. Because we got 3 arms of the government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And to be quite honest, the executive have a very important role to play when we had the regime change. But most of the work also was needed at the judiciary and also at the legislature. So for Halifa and Sidia not to take ministerial position, but end up going to the parliament and helping our new democracy flourish, I think that's also should be commendable, because we've seen the mutual respect they've been accorded in that house, even MPs like who are in opposition parties. I'm a keen follower of Sana Jawara, Yakumba, and any other political parties, MPs that are in the parliament. And when you see Sidia or Halifa speaking, you see the respect that they accord them, because they've been there, they have the experience, and they have the knowledge. So I
But
believe
if
not
you have the knowledge and the experience, it would be nice to share it with people, innit?
That's what they're doing, my brother, at the parliament. Because let's say you've given Halifa a ministerial post. Okay, he's just assigned to that portfolio only. But if you look at parliament, all those ministers are answerable to parliament. So their knowledge and their expertise, I think personally, and I'm not saying personally, I think most Gambians would agree, they're also helping our democracy in the parliament. So for not just look at what happens to those people that had the
But all
ministerial
these
post,
bills, if you
they've
look
all
at some
been
of these
fired.
bills, if you look at most of these bills, they come to the parliament, but some of them, are some dodgy bills that goes to the parliament, but still they go through.
Like
Is there,
which
Halifa
one,
is there.
brother Jame? Which dodgy one?
No,
Give me an
They have-
example.
no, I think Mr. Jame here, I follow Pata PJ, and Pata has always been asking. Sidia Jata, I think, is either the vice chair or the chair of that parliamentary committee that is responsible for the corruption bill. And that corruption bill is still sitting in parliament and is not passed into a bill. Why is that?
Cool. Fair enough. You've asked that question, and the answer is very simple. For bill to pass in parliament, it needs to have the majority to pass. And secondly, what you guys have not maybe followed, I'm a keen follower of Keksane when he's at the National Assembly. These committees that they have in the National Assembly, some of these committees are looking at things since 2016-17. They can't just jump. I think even the one that Halifa is leading, they are currently in the 2000s. They're not even in 2021.
But now
So,
everybody is saying the Barrow government is corrupt. There is rampant corruption in government. But how can Barrow combat corruption when there is no law to support him? Do you want Barrow to just come and give an order to say go and arrest X, Y, Z and put him in prison?
Slayman, let's do away from passing on responsibility here. Okay?
Exactly.
The thing is, the executive since 2016, most of the bills that's been passed in parliament has been tabled by the executive. Only one bill that has been tabled in parliament, in fact, which is favorable to the executive, was that local government. So what is stopping Barrow's executive to bring that anti-corruption bill so that the parliamentarians would vote for it? Because
the
all
anti-corruption
the legislations we had,
the anti-corruption bill, because you said the anti-corruption bill is already in parliament. Because we all had when Tambedu gave his farewell speech, in a press conference, he made that very clear. And that bill is in parliament. And like I said, Sidia Jata is either the chair or the vice chair of the committee that is responsible for looking into that, corruption bill. So you cannot say the executive didn't sponsor the bill. The bill is there. But why are they sitting on that and yet they want government to tackle corruption?
But what I want to interject in that, Mr. Bar, just to add to that,
go on.
The National Assembly does not need to pass legislation to fight corruption. Let's say, for example, the fertilizer scandal. President Barrow stood on a meeting platform and said fertilizer was brought and subsidized for the farmers, but some unpatriotic citizens, as he labeled them, ended up taking the fertilizer across the border to go sell it. Who did the government contract it to? Who did they give it to sell? Why can those people be investigated? After they're investigated, why can they be arrested and prosecuted? Exactly. You don't need a commission for that. You don't need a National Assembly bill for that.
And thank you, Brother Nata, for that. In fact, again, to add on to that, the health minister himself stood at the Parliament Gallery and made mention about those health fundings. So if Barrow is really, really serious about fighting corruption, he doesn't have to wait for that anti-corruption.
And to add insult to injury, Bakari, the fisheries deal, the Minister of Fisheries stood in Parliament and said the fishing deals were illegal.
Right.
And we also the bribery scandal that led to the sacking.
So there's always an
of
issue.
The permanent secretary of the Ministry of Fisheries.
Right. The issue happened.
Yeah, but here Barrow is making effort to fight corruption at his government level.
But we're not seeing anything.
I just ask you a question?
because no,
Can I ask you a
yeah,
question?
you can go ahead.
Tell
Yeah,
me
go ahead.
one instance since
Yeah.
2016 where a top official has been fired and been prosecuted for corruption. Maybe it's just one, but we can
Yeah,
sit down here and name about 10, 15.
yeah, we know one, like you said, one. That is the
Yeah.
PS. Now the
One
other
out
point,
of
like
over thousands.
Natamas stated, on an ideal situation, when Barrow stood in public and said, okay, government invested on fertilizer and then it got diverted, I agree with him. Government he should have gone further to create a commission that would investigate, those involved and then prosecute them. But again, in our deliberations and like highlighted by Manjang, Barrow is on a state capture. We all agree that most of those around him should not be there. Like Nata said, they have no reason to be around Barrow. And Barrow is aware of this. Ideally, I would have gotten rid of them. But it's
Then
like
he's promoting
Why is he
corruption.
still
Then
keeping them
he's
there?
promoting corruption. Then if
Why
he's
is he
so
no,
violent,
keeping them there?
Look, let's say it this way.
no. Listen,
Barrow has got
he
no
is not.
spine. Let's say it this
He
way.
is not. No, he
Barrow's got
has
no
spine
spine.
because if
Okay.
Barrow hasn't,
Barrow has,
got
in fact,
spine,
Barrow re-employed a chap that was implicated in the diplomatic passport scandal.
listen,
How can he do that?
You ask a question. You ask a question, and you want me to answer.
All right.
Barrow has a spine. If Barrow hasn't got a spine, he would not have relieved Dabo of his responsibility as vice president.
That was political,
Okay, we
not
know.
corruption
Yeah,
related.
yeah.
That was
political,
That's
yeah.
why that is what I want to say. Because of political reasons, according to, I've not spoken to him, and I'm not standing brief for him. But these are what is in the public domain, what people are sharing. Barrow knows, most of those people holding him back. And because he is at an electioneering period, getting rid of those people could be politically costly. And wanting to cross that bridge, even if it were any other political leader, would not have, taken that bold step to do that at this particular political period. But come December 4th, December 5th, like he said in Banjul, everything is going to be tech. Because then he knows this is not a coalition government. It's not like a Terika for government as insinuated by Mr. Manjang. It's not, a UDP government as insinuated by other people, but an NPP government led by President Barrow. Then if he had not delivered, I would be one of the first people that would come back and hold him to account. That you had no reason or no excuse for not getting rid of those people that are holding you back. Because understandably, when there is a transition between tyranny and democracy, no honest political analyst would say success would be registered automatically to correct all the errors of the tyranny. And we had lived
just to
22
add to
years
that,
of that.
what I wanted to say in that regard is that, we keep saying coalition government. That didn't stop Barrow from firing OJ. It didn't stop him from firing my Fati, from firing Dabo, Amadou Sane, from firing the late Lamin Dambudiba. Those were coalition partners. He fired them. He could do that. So if there are people around him that are a political burden on the nation, that he knows he cannot develop the nation with them around him, what's to stop him? That means he's more interested in his political capital than he is interested in serving the nation. Because if they are not doing the right thing, and we all know they are incompetent, fire them. If it costs you votes, then that costs you votes.
As we stand now, Nata, let's just be very straight here. Assume this was a UDP government. Do you think at this material time, when you had...
Let us say, for example, Mr. Dabo said it doesn't matter. We don't care if it costs us votes. The TRRC report and the justice that is being recommended will be implemented, and we don't care if it costs UDP votes. So stuff like that is what we do as a leader. These people are holding me back. He said he fired my party because it was the interest of the nation. So those people you think are around Barrow that are not supposed to be there, he needs to fire them too. Almai has more political capital than those people. He has more political capital even 3 years ago.
But actually, Barrow himself said, Barrow himself said on Paradise TV or iAfrica that he didn't care about what anyone else was doing in his government until his position became a threat. That's when he sacks people. He sacked Mafati because his position became a threat. He sacked
I've
Usain
not
Dabo.
had I've not
He
heard
said
that.
something
I
exactly
don't
in
think
the
Barrow,
vein of.
I don't think Barrow would say as a
Okay.
political and a national
He didn't
leader
say it
that
exactly
I
in the
don't.
words I said it, but he said he wasn't too bothered until his position became a threat. That's when he sacked Usain Dabo. So whatever Usain Dabo was doing under him, my party was doing under him, he wasn't bothered until his position became a threat. Then he
Right.
sacked them.
Right. Okay.
How patriotic is that? How nationalist
No,
is that?
I beg to differ, because we all know, before Dabo was relieved of his public office duties, almost every Gambian, was kind of on the edge, because they see those two ladies were derailing the country. Instead of focusing on national development, they were, focusing more on their interpersonal relationship and political ambition. And people said, no, you need to stop this thing, and then you need to focus on the national development, the NDP,
Okay.
and which was called by every
If
citizen.
you let me,
So that led to him, relieving Dabo of his responsibility. So to say that, Barrow hasn't got the pine to take, drastic steps, that are in the interest of the nation is just a political, subterfuge.
The interest of the nation. That's why we're all here. So we've got limited time at the moment before our next program coming. But what I'm saying here, you think out of you here, you think the current government in place now, security-wise, are we safe under the government, Bakari Ba? Do you think we're safe?
Thank you for that question. I've never said what my specialty was. I've did manage about security personnel and a lot of security risk courses and all that. So I'm a security risk expert. When I
yes, I know. I should see you with David Williams.
So when I talk about security, I just don't look at it from a political angle, but from a broader perspective. Our country is very agile, and the political situation right now is not helping it. And I think we haven't got that strong leadership, which is very security concerned. I'm not saying very security conscious by being heavy-handed, but by having systems and personnel in place that are more proactive than reactive, because you don't wait for a problem to happen and try and deal with that. You put policies and you put personnel around to make sure that you avoid any crisis happening. Right now, to be quite honest, the reason why I'm sitting in the UK here talking and not in the Gambia campaigning like Tamba and Mr. Manjan, my born father has to be on his knee to beg me not to come to the Gambia because of how he is concerned about the safety and the security in the country. And if I look at it from a security personnel, I feel the same because of some of the political languages we hear in our political space. And a leader can do a lot by squashing that and by reassuring people. Because whatever happens, brother, all of us here, we are Gambians, and Gambia is bigger than all of us. So whatever we say and whatever we do, particularly our leaders, the safety and the security of the country comes first. We cannot talk about development if we don't have security and safety. We cannot talk about party politics and policies if we are in crisis. And I think Barrow, as the president himself, has a role to play, because we've seen it at the beginning of the campaign trail, where all his political agenda was Usain Dabo this, Usain Dabo that. To an extent, also, we hear about Usain also saying that Barrow this, Barrow that. I think what we need to do, especially us commenting on this political space, is to de-escalate it. Yeah,
exactly.
And we all have a role and a responsibility to do to that, because rather than dealing with the problem, let's avoid the problem. Let's tone down our language. Let's put the national interest first, and let's Barrow not put his winning at all cost at the forefront of our national security. Our national security should come first because he is the one in charge. If anything goes wrong in the Gambia, we should hold him accountable, because not the opposition. He is the one we entrusted with our national coffers, with the budgets to make sure Gambia remains secure and peaceful. And if he fails that, then definitely the buck stops with it.
We know by force. We know by force. President Barrow Ayafole, he did mention this. So I don't know, how does this sound like to you, Mr. Ba?
Say it again. Sorry.
Win or by force? Win is a must.
Look, no, that's undemocratic and that's very irresponsible. Every political leader, including the president, is going out there campaigning to seek the mandate of the Gambian people. So what's the point of them going to campaign if you're going to sit down and say, I'm going to win by force? Just go and sit down in your office on election day, say, I win by force. So that is a language that should not be used by any politician, including the president.
Economic in the Gambia, economic and Senegalese in the Gambia, in our state house, in our security. What are your thoughts as PDO supporter? What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Ba?
You see, we believe in our national sovereignty. Yes, there was a need for economic forces at the beginning, but this prolonged existence of them there is very questionable. And the reason for that is because this government failed on their security reform. This has antagonized our own internal security personnel, like the Gambian National Army, and to an extent, even other security forces. So for me, economic were needed there to restore democracy and make sure it's maintained. But I think they've overstayed. And now for me, I personally believe they are just there for the interest and the security of the president, not the Gambian population at large.
Not the Gambian people at large, Mr. Tamba, was economic necessary? Security of our nation at the moment, you think, are we okay? Are we safe under the current government?
No, we can't be safe when the president himself is the architect of the insecurity that every Gambian citizen is facing.
How is he? How is he the architect? How?
Because the president himself is the agent provocateur. He's provoking Ousainou Darboe. He's provoking Mama Kandeh. His language is so uncouth, is so undiplomatic. He's bragging about gassing his own citizens. He's bragging about this election. He rather dies than lose this election. And he can't talk like that as a head of state. You know what they always say in the leadership books? The best president is the one that's dropping bombs underneath when they're serving people water to drink. You understand? That's the best president. Controlled, calm, but they're waging war somewhere. You don't even know. Even if you had to gas people, to shoot people, to restore peace, you don't stand on the platform and say, oh, I'm so happy I shot somebody. I'm so happy I gassed somebody. Ousainou Darboe, I'm going to retire him. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
President Jammeh, the former president used to do threatening people, he said, if whoever comes out, I'll do this.
Yeah, but that's the president is talking about taking tough action against instability. People who want to destabilize the country. That's different from a president who stand up. Yahya Jammeh faced about 77 coups, 17 of them violent, according to statistics, intelligence reports we're getting.
Have you got evidence? We want some reality.
No, look, that's why I said according to the intelligence information we're getting. But at least 17 of them we probably know. Whether they were staged or not, we already know. So for him to stand up and say, if anyone wants to destabilize this country, I'm going to do this and this and that. That's different from saying, Yahya Jammeh saying, if I catch Ousainou Darboe today, I'm going to do this. If I catch Halifa Sallah, I'm going to do this. Or I was happy that I blocked Ousainou Darboe and other people at Fast Njaga Choi. He doesn't stand on the platform. In fact, Yahya Jammeh is renowned for ending his own supporter speeches on stage for disrespecting other political leaders.
Who is known for this? Who is known for that?
He brought FJC down, Fatmata Jahumpasise down from the podium for talking against other political party leaders.
Who is known for this talking against, on their platform? Who is known for that?
Barrow is doing that on a daily basis until Yahya Jammeh spoke in Farafenye and saved Grandpa Ousainou Darboe. Because since Yahya Jammeh spoke at our rally in Farafenye, Barrow had a different problem. He no longer focused on Ousainou Darboe. He was focused on provoking Mama Kandeh now, because that's the point at which the Gambian political landscape changed. Look, Barrow himself admitted publicly, so yes, he admits that he failed in terms of security. You understand? So if a president says that, and you're not putting systems in place, and Barrow will not.
What's your take? What is your take on foreign nationals like the economic and then Senegalese in our security?
Okay. So my party, I think the economics should have gone by latest March 2017. They could have made a U-turn the minute Yahya Jammeh flew out anyway. But if they made a case to say, Yahya Jammeh's elements are still in the government.
Yeah, but why was Yahya Jammeh in fact insistent? Was he insistent, and why?
No, Yahya Jammeh
Yeah,
was
I think
Yahya
if
Jammeh, by the way, politically, legally, Yahya Jammeh had every right to insist that the case must go to the Supreme Court. And I think we made a grave mistake of not allowing the law to take its course. We made a massive mistake that history will not be kind to us for refusing a case to be heard in a law court. But economic, if they came in and said, all right, well, Yahya Jammeh still got elements here. We need 3 months to 6 months to stabilize the government security forces and reform them, fine. When it gone past 6 months, and then secrets started coming out, and then my party finally cemented what I already knew, that the forces in the Gambia, foreign forces in the Gambia, were not entirely economic. There was an economic contingent, and there was an illegal Senegalese contingent, as confirmed by my party on member hearing. I knew that since 2017 because I was very close to military families and police families who told me. But my party confirmed. So that illegal contingent of Senegalese forces who could have been deployed to Gambia only via an act of parliament were the ones that shot the Kanilai people and killed them. Barrow could have taken action against those forces. They are not economic. They are not international peacekeeping forces. So they should have gone about 4.5 years ago. They should leave now. One of our priorities as the APRC, GDC, GAP, and Independent is to restore our peace by trusting our Gambian citizens, our army, our police, our paramilitary, reforming them, getting them fit and ready to fire, to defend the Gambian constitution, to defend Gambian citizens. Economic should go. All right. So now we're saying, how do you control security? I'm glad my colleague Bakariba made it clear that security, like many things government, are being on the front foot, proactive. We need Gambia police today do not have motorbikes. They do not have cars for speed chases. Samaritans have to borrow them vehicles when somebody kidnaps a woman or somebody and puts them in the car so that they can chase that person. They don't have telephone lines at police stations. They don't have internet at police stations, and the policing needs to be modernized. This is what we have in our
Well, this was even happening when Yahya Jammeh was there, the former president was there. It's the same thing. What's the difference?
No. The army, Gambia army and Gambia police were properly equipped under Jammeh. You know that. Crime rate under Jammeh, especially when it comes to with guns and knife crime, was close to 0.00 something. How many times have you heard, apart from the allegations against security forces, how many times have you heard gun-related crime perpetrated by civilians under Jammeh? Very few and far between. Now it's rampant. In your own house, people will take your burglar proof apart, take your windows apart, come to your bedroom, have knives on your throats, tell you to basically give up every single thing you have. For 2-3 hours, they hold you and your family hostage and no police officer turns up. Under Jammeh, there are security presence in the streets, what you call a deterrent. That's what you need. Bobbies on the beat, police going in and out day and night. You had people suspecting that, oh, the chap standing in that queue in the bank might be NIA, might be police. All right, because they're in mufti, in plain clothes. So people had a deterrent. They were afraid to commit some of the silly crimes that we see. Look at how many babies, children.
All right, can I come in now, please?
No, I'll come to you, Suleiman. Before I come to you, Nata, security. Are we safe under the current government? You think the security in the Gambia, what is it like for you?
That's why Barrow still has Senegalese soldiers and economic protecting him, because he doesn't feel secure enough by our own Gambian people. So now imagine all the security there is for him. Now imagine the people that he didn't trust to secure him.
But you know that could lead to something else, you know, because if our own securities are not empowered, you know, they'll have some grievance, you know. What do you think? That could lead to anything. You know?
So the whole situation is testament to the failure of President Barrow and the agenda that he was elected on. It's that simple. Mr. Tamba was talking about how there was no crime under Jammeh. You know, like it's no credit to Jammeh that he ruled based on fear. People were scared for their lives to even speak politically, much less to commit a crime. That's no credit to the state. That was just Jammeh being the, you know, tyrant that he was, and people recognize that. So people living in fear in a police state is no credit to the state for instituting security in that country. People were just fearful for their lives. Now that we have democracy, what needed to happen was for security sector reform that was needed. Economic coming in was testament to the fact that the military itself was fractured. Look at the junglers. They were not answerable. We saw them at the TRRC. They were not answerable to the chain of command. They did their own thing. We have elements in there. The NIA was the same. Instead of being focused on the security of the state and gathering intelligence to figure out what threats are there existing against the state, they were more concerned about what threats are against Yahya Jammeh politically. We in the UDP know. You know, if people didn't know, Solo Sanda was the last before Yahya Jammeh left, but there was so many more before that. So they were all interested in the security of one person and what was his interest. To reform that was what the security sector reform was supposed to do. People who were expert in security,
When?
former service personnel and international experts in security were supposed to come in, lay down modalities as to how to change the dynamics of the security forces, not unjustly fire anybody or prosecute them or do whatever to them, but to recognize the security needs of the Gambia. What do we need as a country to be able to feel secure and safe? Let us implement those. And if for any reason we need to downsize the army, let us find other avenues for those people that have to be downsized, create gainful employment for them and their families. Whatever needs to be done, basically, it was need to be assessed and then implemented. Barrow failed at that. That's why he still has the economic in the country, and people are no better off for it. In fact, we're worse off for it because he's secure and he's fine. Everybody else can, you know, basically figure it out themselves.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Mr. Yang, you can come in here. I hope you are
Yeah,
having a look at some of the comments.
yeah,
I don't know how
yeah,
can we have this in some of the radio stations in the Gambia.
yeah.
Somebody said it's a
Thank you
very
very much. I
interesting.
think I definitely concord with Natama's analysis on a state police that was run by Jammeh, which instilled fear on Gambians, and it served as a deterrent. And then when Jammeh was leaving, I think the only advice he gave to Barrow was, take good care of the security. He did emphasize that. And because Jammeh coming from a security background and reducing the state to a police state and using all the security apparatus as an extended arm of his political party to orchestrate all his illegal orders and to instill fear on Gambians, to completely subdue them to his wishes, made the crime rate drop significantly, like Natamas observed. But we all know, after in 2016, there was a need for the economic to come. The economic came, and then the security sector reform should have focus on
Why are they still there?
looking
Why
at
are they still there?
the reason why they're still there. From my own security perspective, we all remember during 2016, I don't know whether you were aware or not, but even on social media, they were saying cutlasses became scarce in the Gambia. You cannot get cutlass in any of the shops. People bought all those cutlasses. And then when Jammeh left, we also understand that not all the armory was accounted for. There are some that are still at large. And then there was a time, I think, in Banjul, when they are doing the gutters, they found an AK-47 buried in one of the gutters.
Suleiman, all those things
No,
are
let,
conjectures. They even
no,
said
no,
they
no,
found
let,
chemicals in the
let,
air
let me just,
conditioning at State House. All those
yeah,
things were
let,
painting Jammeh
let,
as a monster,
yeah,
but
no, let me
none of
just
those
say,
were verified.
let me just finish. And then we know, Kanilai is just next door to Casamas. And most of the time, we had instances wherein, Senegalese forces would chase in rebels into Casamas. And we also, had situations where they said Jammeh was sponsoring some of the rebels in Casamas, whether that is true or not, but it was, heavily saturated in our social media platforms. Now, why would the government just release the economic and say, okay, your mission is completed, go, because Jammeh has gone? No, because the security sector reform is yet to be completed. Natama said we had junglers, and we all know, because those people were not taking direct orders from the from their chain of command. They were taking orders from Jammeh. So we still have elements within the security forces who are still loyal
our
to Jammeh.
security, they're not trustworthy enough now. So some elements of Jammeh
No,
are there, and they're a threat.
they are still there, just like the
They're still a threat,
APRC. Some of the APRC supporters, some of the APRC supporters are not loyal to APRC. They are only loyal to Jammeh. So they can sacrifice their life for Jammeh, and you still have those elements in security. You still have some of those elements in our security services. So like Natama said, you cannot just come illegally and say you go home, you do this, you do that. You need to establish, authentic evidence that these people are this, and then you cannot just send them home like that, because if you send them home, you are making them to be more violent, to be more to be criminals, so that they can go and
the truth is, Suleiman, it takes 3 months at most to train a new army officer, right?
Really?
Yeah,
really, 3 months.
Training. Yeah, but
basic recruit training is 6 months.
Okay, so let's suppose. Okay,
yes.
Let me just carry on. Now we have seen before, Jammeh used to intervene with the security, how the security is run. And I spoke to the late Mahmoud Job. I spoke to IGP Kinte and IGP Sanyang, and all of them confirmed there was not a single instance when Barrow would call and give them an order to carry out.
Do you expect them to say that publicly? I
didn't call them in public.
Right.
These are my colleagues. These are people that I've worked with. These are people that.
And do we expect you to reveal that publicly? Do we expect you to reveal that publicly?
If I can hold Barrow accountable in public, why can't I hold them accountable in public?
But you heard people at TRRC saying they never actually spoke to Jammeh directly. Isn't that the same thing we're talking about?
Bakari, can you mute yourself, Bakari?
No, because Mr. Tamba. Yeah. These are things that are very crucial, and we must not downplay them for political expediency, because we need to look at the national interest, like we all agreed. We are here for the national interest and not for just mere politics.
If you let me in, Mr. Jeng, Ahmed, security, what have we got in place for the security of our nation?
Yeah, well, if the president don't feel safe, we don't feel safe with our own security, that means the country is not safe. That is worrying, and that is affecting the confidence of the foreign investors. So this is something that needs to stop. That's why in the Sobeakago government, within 3 months, we will tell these people, thank you very much for your service to our country, and we'll then let them go. I think for the longest time, Gambian security service has been winning awards, medals in the international security scene, like in Darfur and other parts of the world. And they keep getting more of them to go and do the peacekeeping and other security service operations. So how on earth, 5 years, we cannot trust, our president cannot, I'm not saying Gambian, our president cannot trust Gambian security forces. That begs us believe. But I know the story why we are where we are today. We were all distracted by the tactical alliance. Once the tactical alliance comes, the coalition MOU, security service reform, and other reforms that are recommended by the MOU that was stipulated in 2016 political agreement were all abandoned. It's about funkum. Everybody is trying to participation.
Yes.
Position themselves so that they can be key players in the next republic.
Right. Funkum.
Got us here. That's why we need a neutral, somebody with clear bill of health. What I mean by that, I don't mean to disrespect, but somebody without no political value, like somebody come and bring everything together. I will not hesitate to recommend any of these gentlemen here on this platform to serve in the government, because they are competent, they are all smart, they all have Gambia at heart. So that's why we should all rally behind the Soviet leader.
Thank you.
To come
Yeah.
that renew optimism, political neutrality, and also tribal ambiguity. To bring this government together. But any of these three, like the PDP, the UDP, and the NPP, the political back and forth is going to continue. Gambia is tired. We cannot afford this. It's a nightmare. You write something, even if you are talking about religion, some will put a religious tag on it. So this is tiring. Is
and like I was going to add, if you look at security reform is not just about changing the security chiefs and then sending orders home. Security reform entails a lot of other things, and one of them is training of the personnel and equipping the personnel, giving them capacity. We have seen, during the political nomination, how the security services conducted themselves and how they conducted and monitored, the nomination process, and everybody commended them. But if you look at, the 2016 and then, the other previous nominations, it was completely different. So we have seen, a tremendous improvement on the side of our security sector. And Gambians, like picked up with Manjang, are serving in other countries, on peacekeeping missions. So how would it feel if those citizens would say, no, send the Gambians home, we don't want them here? These are, of course, I understand,
those countries are at war. Those countries are at war. Gambia is not at war. Gambia was at
the verge of war. Gambia
has an insecure president who doesn't trust his own citizens, but is going around the country asking the same citizens to give him the vote. Isn't that ironical? Why would
if the president feels insecure, if the president feels insecure, how do you expect the ordinary citizens would feel secure?
But what's the security? It's because of incompetence. You said let's take an example. It takes 6 months to train a security officer. Let's say that was a standard across all security forces, right? How long?
Again, you need to understand.
So it looks like we have an impasse here on a situation that is really resolved. One, we're in this mess because Lamin Tamba's man put us in it to start with.
Actually, the irony
when he
is
created the impasse, that resulted in the coming of the... Now, let me finish.
The houses were safe. The few people who felt unsafe were the people.
Yes, we already established that is as a result of the rule of fear that.
But let Mr. Mas finish, Mr. Tamba. Give him chance.
A comic came into the country because Jammeh, after conceding defeat, decided to rescind his position and then threatening force mounting battle stations across the country. So a larger force needed to be called in to make sure Gambia does not descend into civil strife, because at that point it was either Jammeh left or there was civil strife. So that he put us in that mess. Number two, the remedy should have been security sector reform, which Barrow failed to do. So Jammeh and Barrow, they can be on one side.
Can we say,
for
1 minute admit that UDP failed to start the security sector reform? UDP should have done this because they were the majority.
When you say Barrow failed to do the security sector reform, what exactly do you mean? Because if it comes to training the security, we have all seen, the German police, the French police coming to retrain our police officers. We have seen how the police have been equipped, especially the PIU.
That was a long-standing tradition. Soldiers were being trained by the British, by the Germans. They were going to Turkey. They were going to the United States. They were going to the UK, everywhere.
Okay.
When we needed security,
Can I come in, Jens?
Because you are bringing the Jammeh tendency here because you're not letting me talk. Let me finish, and you can come. Let me just come with my facts, and you can rubbish them with your facts. Okay. But if you don't hear my rubbish, you cannot establish whether it is rubbish or a fact.
Hear him out. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we all agree, like Natama stated, Jammeh created the situation for ECOMIC to come. If Jammeh had not created that situation in the first place, we would not be talking about ECOMIC here. Not IEC, it's Jammeh.
All right.
Jammeh created it because he admitted already, he accepted the defeat. So
and then what happened after? And then
Halifa Sallah gave us peace. during the
No.
impasse.
What
That's it.
yeah.
Let's move on.
What happened after? What happened after? What happened after is not the question. Now, what we are seeing, what most of you seems to ignore or overlook, is government investment in transforming the police and the paramilitary, because this where the paramilitary was the major institution and the army that were used by Jammeh to do most of his atrocities. Now we have seen Barrow is investing a lot in the retraining of the PIU and
PIU for what? Mr. Jeng, can I come in there?
No. Because if I don't finish, you won't, get what I'm trying to say.
Let me finish,
you must hear what I have to say. Then you can rubbish what I have to say. If it is with your facts, if you get anything better.
Yeah, go on.
We have seen, a clear manifestation was how they conducted the nomination processes. Will you tell me that the PIU didn't do well, in providing security for all the political parties during their nomination? Was there any crisis? No, there wasn't. So we have seen their, approach to crowd control and management during the nomination is far better than what we have seen they've done in Faraba. Is far better than what we have seen during 3 years Jordan. So that means there has been effort made to transform, that security sector reform, because security sector reform, you don't get just results or dividends one day or 1 week, because what has happened for 22 years, no government, even if it were Doi that came into power, they could not have resolved everything, within that within
just
a 5
3 weeks ago, Suleiman.
I'm glad we are the benchmark, Suleiman.
Yeah, just 3-4 weeks ago, security, the paramilitary went into the house of Jerendi Sanyang, a private property with no PA, no resistance, no violence, and tear gassed our people and kicked them about. How is that good for the PIU? How is that a reformed force?
Now, what you
can call the BBC, can call Al Jazeera, can call anyone to their house, all right, and have a press conference. Do you understand?
Can I come in here?
Let me just explain here quickly the security procedure in dispersing a crowd. When a crowd gathers at a public place, and then there is a security, even a private place, and then the security feel it could be a potential, insecurity for the public. They are obliged to disperse that crowd, and they cannot just come and fire tear gas
before negotiating.
Let me finish. Wow. They cannot just. There are procedures that they have to follow, and the tear gas, firing of tear gas, is the last resort. Because there is a proclamation that needs to be made. You need to tell the people why they should disperse, and you should give them time and space so that they can peacefully disperse.
Right.
When the time elapses, you can again remind them they've been given time and they've been ordered by law that they need to disperse. And if they fail after that particular time, then you have to use tear gas to disperse them, because they are refusing a lawful order.
That was the first and last resort, and it was on private property where people just gathered to talk.
I'm not an eyewitness to that. I cannot say that is what happened. That is your own side of the story.
Live on Facebook, it was.
Right. Before we go any further, I would like to, because we got about 15 minutes, to sum up this whole thing. I'm not sure if we are able to do that before we lose 1 or 2 of us here. What I'm trying to put across, I want us to give a summary of, are we safe with the current IEC and the health sector? Is it good enough? And our economy with the foreign investors. I wanted to shed light on this, but can we summarize this, Jens? I know this is hard to do, but your thoughts on our economy, your thought on our health sector and our IEC. I'll come to you, Bakari, first.
Thank you very much, brother Mustafa. Our health, I will start with, because it's paramount important, and in any government, as we keep discussing here, should have priority. And I think the health sector in the Gambia needs to be given a proper priority. I'm not just saying priority in terms of just facelifting and all that. It needs a proper revamping. It needs restructuring. And to be quite honest, a small country like the Gambia, we should not be facing these challenges we are facing in our health sector right now. We should have gone way beyond that. But I think we would all agree that our health sector is at least 50 to 100 years behind even our neighbors in Senegal. Growing up in rural Gambia, I remember I did my Form 1 in Kaur. Those days, the Senegalese people by the frontier, Kafring and all that, they used to cross the frontier to come to the Kaurs, the Panchangs, the Njaos, to have their treatment. Now, unfortunately, that has reversed so much that we are the one going to Senegal for treatment. That is definitely a telling for our leadership in the last few years, and it can be easily reversible. By how? By prioritizing it, giving it the adequate resourcing it needs and the finances, and also uplifting the capacity of those people that works in our health sector. I mean, if you look at the mortality rates in the Gambia, they are shocking. They are unacceptable, and to be quite honest, something can be done to stop that. That's the health sector. In terms of IEC, we should be concerned. We've all seen what has happened in 2016. Yes, Jammeh had renegated, even though the numbers have just slightly changed. But the institution like the IEC should have proper due diligence, should be well structured, and they should be also very careful, because this year we can't afford to have it wrong. If anything goes wrong in part of IEC, may God forbid, things will not look good for our country. So the whole world is on top of them. How they handle the nomination and the disqualification of some of the other parties is very concerning, because we've seen what the court verdicts are. I still have my trust and respect in the IEC. It's just that my trust has been dented, and how they're going to repay that, we want a free, fair, and credible election, because the system of election we've got in the Gambia is rig-proof everywhere in the world. It's one of the best. So it makes their life much more easier to give us the results as they come and as they are, and they should be very accurate. We don't want to have any other situation like the 2016. What was the third topic you said, Mustafa?
Economy, money.
Economy.
And investors. Yeah.
To be quite honest, talking about figures here, we had a PPP government of 30 years. We had a Jammeh of 22 years. Barrow now coming to 5 years. If you look at our trade deficit to what it was during Jawara time, it was 1.4 billion. When Jammeh left in 2016, it was just about 16 billion. Right now, we're talking about 29 billion. And if you look at our debt as a country, it's over 50 billion. So each and everyone sitting here in this screen watching or listening to me, you have over $28,000 debt on top of your head. Now, the problem of the economy is we can't rely on just loans and grants. We are not producing as a country. We are not bridging that gap between what we spend and what we need. And sometimes as a country, the best way to simplify this, you cannot go to a supermarket knowing that you've got $10 in your pocket, but then you want to spend $15 or $20 at the checkout. That gives you a deficit. What you need to do is, when you're spending, you spend according to your means. I'm not asking for massive austerity, but if you look at the size of the Gambia and you look at the expenditure of that government, to be quite honest, it's shocking. And I agree with Brother Manjang, there is a lot of wastage and loopholes that we can close in. Just look, primarily, you look at most of these MPs, they've been issued with a pickup truck, but you go to their various consequences, they don't even have a functioning ambulance. That just tells you where the priority is in terms of health and all that. So basically, our economy, it's over bloated, and definitely something needs to be done. If not, we would turn to an Greece, because we would default in our debts, and then all the creditors would just come and do exactly what China did to some other African countries. Some of our key areas that are source of revenue, like the ports and stuff like that, would be taken away. So definitely the economy is not in a good state. And I believe that's where my party is a lot different to all of my colleagues here, because we have sound policies that would address our economic issues. Health is the same thing. And when it comes to the credibility of the IEC, I still have faith in the leadership, but I think how they handle the disqualification of some of the nomination of those candidates leave a lot to be desired, and that was backed up by court. I have to be doing my goodbyes, if you don't mind. I have someone waiting for an interview.
Exactly, yes. Before you go, I've got only one for you. Do you think, just yes or no, do you think PDOIS is going to win?
Yes.
Okay. If you do not win, would you consider coalition with any of these parties?
To be quite honest, we did say this. What we don't want is another coalition of regime change. We've achieved that in 2016. If there is any party or any Gambian that want to change the system, because we will all agree here, even Mr. Jeng to an extent, even though they're the incumbent, some of the systems we got in the Gambia needs to go. So we want to have a system which would be the foundation to a sustainable, developed, and prosperous Gambia. If we have a coalition of that, you know, politics is not about friendship. Politics is about mutual interest. And if we put our national interest first, we would all agree the state of Gambia needs to change, and we can all come together to change that. And any other party that wants to join the PDOIs for that, I'm 100% for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. J. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the brothers. Massive respect to you. We will keep on interacting on social media. And again, my advice to Gambia is please, let's keep the peace and tranquility. Election comes and go, leaders comes and go, but our Gambia is always going to be there. So let's make sure we maintain the peace, and whatever we do, Gambia comes first. Thank you, everyone.
Have a nice day. Cheers. Yes. Mr. Manyang, Ahmed.
Yes, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Jata Kende, aning economy, aning how do you call it? Health,
IEC,
economy, and IEC. Aning IEC. Your thoughts?
Yeah. I have to admit, I lose confidence in the IEC.
You lose confidence in the IEC.
What happened to CA and GMC, that alone is enough reason for us to even postpone the election and institute a new independent impartial IEC. And also there are some serious technical issues when we have over 3,000 voters that are double voters. The same Samuel Janjai name keep coming up. I cannot independently verify it. But what happened to those 3,000 voters? How can we be so they will not be added on somebody's So these are issues we are talking about. Sport counting, yes, that's a very good safety net. But the election, I think, is already compromised. To be honest with you, I don't know in favor of which party or the incumbent, but I think the election is already compromised. But you know, I don't know what happened to TV. That alone in any serious country, people will demand that we stop for the moment and institute a thorough investigation. What went wrong? Why? A political party that was in operation for how long? They spent 1 million just to register, only for them to be disqualified and also qualified by the courts of law. You know, is very, very worrying for me. Well, the health sector is something that I work all my life in, and I'm very, very, very concerned about it. But right now, our health sector is not fit for purpose. Our hospital cannot be referred to as they are more of hospitals where people go and go to and die. You know, I'm based in the medical school. I've seen the condition and I've seen the situation. What our students have to put through just to get their education. Could you imagine the labs for the medical student? You have 59 of them. This can land you into trouble. But you know what? I'm more serious about the entire the future of this country than my personal employment status. Mustafa, we have 59 medical students, but in the lab is fit. You cannot teach 2 people, more than 2 students effectively in that lab. So for the longest time, these people have been very steep in theory, but when it comes to practical, there is no, they are almost non-existent. And we are still surprised why we have all these death rates in our hospitals. So these are some of the things under the Soviet government we've been talking about.
Yes, you know, after stating this, you know, I would put this point across. After stating this, if anybody who attack you to lose your job, let us know. Mr. Jang, while as a guy, anybody who said, because Ahmed is a lecturer at the university at the moment, he's teaching this, and then I don't think this would make him lose his job if we
No,
want
no, no.
democracy.
Ahmed is not going to lose his job. Ahmed is a jam, and you cannot dismiss his. You find very few Gambians, in his area that will be lecturing at the university. So to say you
Okay.
are going to get rid of him because of politics, I think that's rubbish. That's
Okay.
Carlos.
Feel free to go, Mr. Manyan.
Yeah, so the economy, well, that's a public knowledge. I think even the layman on the street know that our economy is not working. And a clear example, the most basic example for one to give is about our vegetable gardens. Mustafa, well, I think this across the country anyway, but if you come from where we come from, you come our schools, most of the time it's been paid from the proceeds of these vegetable gardens. So this is something also very close to my heart. But always there is most of the time, in fact, the supply always outstrips the demand, and that brings the prices down. And most of them, there is lot of wasting in things. The Senegalese now are coming in, so there is no wasting. When the demand outstrips when the supply outstrips the demand, the Senegalese will come in the bodywoods where they are very close around Paraguay and all that. They will buy it and take it to Senegal and wash it and keep them in their coolers. So when the supplies goes down, they will bring it back again. This is what we see, and our people are scrambling for them. So these are simple things our government should invest on. Find cold storage for our fishing sector and also our agriculture, not only the vegetables, but the agroforestry now is on the increase in this country. Almost everybody who can afford it are investing on orchards and all that. So if we can sort out all this, we should be able to feed ourselves. And the money we're going to use in the foreign exchange we're going to lose in importing them will help us our economy. So these are simple we will concentrate on with no rocket science. So under the tone around is not what the international community, whatever they are meant how to develop. But we are very clear in our minds, cut government wastage, invest on youth. That's why we are spending 50 million on Gambian youth alone annually, just to reduce the number of to increase the number of Gambian youths in education, employment, and also in learning skills. So the future of this country lies with the Soviet Kafu. And I believe the Gambian people, I have no doubt the youth, they have seen themselves in us. That's why anywhere we go, you look at our support base, it's mainly youth and the women. And the women, we all know, any kind of disaster or difficulty the country have is the women that suffers most, then the youth. So it's not surprising to find yourself by far most ardent supporters are in the youth and also in the women.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
But anyway, for this opportunity, as I'm going to repeat this, I have to apologize for the whole internet network. I subscribe to two main internet suppliers. That's the Gamtel and the DK Telecoms. DK Telecom supposed to be Alpha and Omega, but today they let me down, not only on these occasions. So these are issues. Before President Barrow stands on the political platform, promising our women that they will be watering their vegetable gardens through their mobiles while cooking at home. He should please try and invest on internet. Our economy cannot live without high-speed internet.
Yeah, Mr. Manjan, do you think you're going to win? Yes or no?
We win. I say we will win.
If you do not win, would you consider coalition with any parties?
No, well, any political party that's aligned with our agenda, we will be more than open. But in this election, there will be nothing like a second round. This is simple majority. Remember, we are going to this election with the IHMS laws. I wouldn't call them the 1997 law because this is the law that was tailor-made for the IHMS self-protection. That is one of our collective failings. After all the energy and everything we invested, we end up going to election with a law that was used to suppress Gambians, that was used to bastardize the democracy. It's rather unfortunate. So we don't make any progress. In fact, we retrogress in these 5 years.
Okay.
All what we achieved is all was compromised.
Yeah.
political expediency. That's why those who are irresponsible, the key players, the Gambian people should stay away from them because they don't have the country at hand. Vote for us by far, where below democracy will be the queen of the day. And also to stop these political ping pong, the personal attacks, the insults, the name callings. We don't need that. We just need to start concentrating on building this country. We suffered for long time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manyang. I'll come to you alphabetically. L is Lamin. So, Mr. Tamba,
yes,
health, economy, and IEC. Your thoughts?
Well, let me start with the IEC because I want to put them to bed. In 2016, we all blamed Jame for creating the impasse because it was fashionable at the time to blame Jame because he was public enemy number one to people who thought he was a monster. Now those people are admittedly coming out gradually and saying, look, in fact, Gambia was better under Jame. And you heard Dr. Manjan just say Gambia is actually gone backwards now. We didn't make any gains, which is damning on the incumbent Barrow government. So the IEC declared the results. Jame said, yes, I concede. A day or two later, no, actually, we made a massive mistake. The mistake is a massive vote swing of about 50 to 70 to 80,000. I don't remember the actual figure now, going from one party to the other. In that situation, in any country, the alarm bells will ring, including the burning of voters' cards, the manipulation of 37,000 voters' cards, according to Dusano of Barrow and the NPP. He was on Star FM saying they manipulated about 37,000 voters' cards. I don't know how. I don't know if it's illegal, but I know tampering with people's right to vote, enfranchisement, is a criminal offense. But I don't know what happened. Maybe they did it illegally by just encouraging people not to vote. I do not know. But the IEC said, Jame lost. Jame said, yep, okay, I admit. Next day, oh, we made a mistake. Jame said, right, I'm going to petition you to the Supreme Court. There are constitutional provisions which set out how an election petition should be submitted 9 days after the declaration of results, and then how it must proceed at the Supreme Court. We refuse to allow Jame that space. Let's move on. 2018, IEC created the same problem. 2 sets of results. Caused a lot of problems in Sierra North, I think, in Kuntauru administrative area. Eventually got resolved. I have a feeling that the IEC is a significant player, probably the most significant player in this election that we face right now. They've already had their hand in it. They've taken 10 days worth of campaigning or 2 weeks worth of campaigning from the CA party leader, Dr. Cisse, and from my party of the GMC. Not only did they do that, IEC allowed Barrow to use them as a tool to intimidate Mama Kande of the GDC, APRC, and GAP and Independent Alliance. Barrow told them to tell Mama Kande to tell Jame to be quiet. Why would the IEC have any power to intervene when it comes to citizens' rights? IEC cannot give or take the rights of Gambian citizens that are enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, or the universal rights that every citizen should have. Right to express themselves, to associate, to practice politically, right to enfranchisement, or you change it the other way, you call it political rights. Jame has all those rights. Now, for the IEC to allow Barrow to bully them, to send a letter to Mama Kande and say to him, tell Jame to be quiet or else we'll take action against you. What action exactly? So IEC is involved in the provocation of our campaign because Barrow is rattled by what is happening in our campaign. So the IEC has disqualified 2 candidates. Like Dr. Manjang said, I am at a loss as to why the court didn't order the IEC, knowing that you were wrong, and you took away from Citizens Alliance and Gambia Moral Congress 10 days or 2 weeks worth of campaigning. It would be right to allow these 2 political parties to have the same opportunity to campaign for a presidential election. Why have they been disadvantaged?
So you think that would be an extension? That means the election has to be extended?
Absolutely. If the institution that was given constitutional mandate to conduct the affairs of the elections in the Gambia messed up big time, the Gambia should not go into a vote at the disadvantage of these two candidates.
Okay.
However, I don't think they're going to postpone the election, and my party and Dr. Cisse should escalate this case to any level they can. I will give them my own political backing. So we go to the health, or you wanted to ask a question in relation
no,
to
health, go on, health.
Now, we go to health. I mean, it's known now by everyone that Gambian hospitals, including the Edward Francis Moore Teaching Hospital, is a death trap. People go there to die, not to be saved from dying, basically. And this has been the case as soon as 7 months after Jammeh left. You know what happened? Jammeh and the APRC government used to stock medication 7 months in advance for the common illnesses in the Gambia. This is a fact. This is somebody who's actually now supporting Adama Barrow, who sent me this, used to be a minister of health and used to know everything about the medical stores. All right? They used to have 7 months worth of medical stock in advance in our Gambian medical stores for the common ailments in the Gambia, malaria, diabetes, and other things, anything that Gambian population was suffering from significantly in large numbers we had. All right? So what did Jammeh do? He was the first person in modern Gambian, what you call medical services, to bring CTI, MRI scanners to the hospital, not just one, but two. Now, when Jammeh left, the one at Serekunda General Hospital, we all heard that scandal. It broke down, they couldn't repair it, and they couldn't replace it. The one at Edward Francis Small Hospital, people had to pay to go private, to pay 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 4,000, depending on where you go, to get a simple scan of your body.
Okay.
And then when you go to the hospital has to refer you to go to pharmacies to buy medical stuff for our hospitals.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, economy.
Yeah, we can't even afford surgical gloves, blood bags. We saw the scandal. All right? Ambulances do not have batteries to ferry passengers. They do not have fuel in some occasions. Edward Francis Small Hospital, our beacon of medical services, where somebody is supposed to go and get saved. They were suffering from power cuts. They were not getting water supply. President Jammeh under the APRC connected the hospital to the State House emergency generator. Did they sell or steal that generator?
Yes. Just services. You know, before you further, because the frequency, the radio here will be deactivated in the next 9 minutes. So that's why I'm trying to condense it. If you can condense it a bit,
so I'll condense it
itself, and then somebody else is coming at 3:30. That's why.
Yeah, so our medical services need to go back to where they were. The medical students you heard Mr. Manjam mention, since Jammeh left, they could not conduct their electives. If you don't know what electives are, these are the specialist areas where people train to become qualified doctors when they graduate from university. For 4 years now, the students could not complete their electives because of serious shortages of either staff at the hospital. So our medical services is going down. If we go to the economy, let's go to Jammeh's policy again. Vision 2016. Eat what you grow, grow what you eat. The simple market policy is you have to meet the demand in order to be able to control the prices. If you're not going to meet the demand, you're going to have to import from elsewhere. So we produce stuff in the Gambia. Under Jammeh, there was a lot of production of animal products and a lot of agricultural products. And Jammeh put in tax policies to protect our home produce to the point where importation of Irish potato, importation of onions, or everything that was readily produced in the Gambia was discouraged from being brought in from other countries. As soon as Barrow and his people came, in order to suit Senegal, to serve Senegal's foreign policy, they removed that tax policy. They took the tractors from Gambian farmers, and in place of tractors, they replaced it with donkeys. Therefore, the stuff we were producing to ensure we controlled market prices disappeared. Our fishery industry, we can't even get fish these days. We saw them chasing our fishermen from Gambian waters. This is why the price of fish has gone up. If we cannot produce stuff, we cannot control their prices. And these prices control the market prices.
Do you think your coalition is going to win?
We are going to win 100%. We've look, GDC pulling around 20-25%, APRC pulling around 20-25%. That's over 40% of the vote when we have 4 or 5 other parties coming in.
If you do not win, would you consider coalition with any political party?
If we do not win this election, no, we're not gonna consider coalition going into the next election, because by that time we will be prepared to kick Barrow out. If you're saying whether we'll consider a coalition now going into this vote, maybe it depends on who's approaching us and what they want to do. But after this election, if we do not win,
which political party would you say never to? No, never to. Which one?
we will never say never to any political party. They'll be ready to go with the memorandum of understanding what we already have, or we can adapt it a little bit. But we will never say never to any political party.
Thank you. Nathan.
Yes, sir.
Yes, health, economy, IEC. In summary, I don't know. Are you able to do this in 4 minutes?
4 minutes. Okay. So just going back on what the previous speakers were saying, the health sector is undesirable, to just sum it up in one word. It's undesirable, totally undesirable. I guess we get to know a lot about some of these issues because we are now able to access and share information compared to what it was previously. Mr. Ba, before he left, mentioned that people used to come from border villages in Senegal to get access to healthcare in the Gambia. That was during the Jawara regime. You can say access was limited to certain places, or you have to go, but the quality was there. It was not a death trap as it is currently. So we need a complete overhaul of that healthcare system. And just to show you what I was pointing to earlier on, Barrow buying ambulances, those are visible things that you can show people that, oh, I bought ambulances, but to what end? Which hospitals are they going to take them to? When they go, what are they going to find there? You know, we all had Mr. Dabo when he had his accident a couple of days ago, how he touted some of these medical professionals that were assisting him. We have the competence in the Gambia, but they don't have the tools to work with. And instead of getting them those tools, Barrow is busy buying ambulances just to show people that I bought ambulances that are not going to take people anywhere other than those death traps. So on the IEC, yes, they've been making mistakes and they, raising some serious questions about the credibility of the upcoming elections, and some avoidable mistakes have been made. But the process, to a large extent, which is from the registration of voters and all that's going on, we can give them some credits on that. Where it comes to the elections and the fear of the people, because it's going to be so contentious this year, we don't want any mistakes, and it is all in the hands of the IEC to make sure that the mistakes that happened in 2016 and in the local government elections that he mentioned with Kuntaul between GDC and UDP doesn't happen again. But I still have faith in the IEC. It has been shaken, but there's still faith there, and I believe they can rectify it. It's within their means. To the economy, instead of flying out these big numbers and trade deficit and all that, they're all important, but to the average Gambian, what they're considering is how expensive it is to live. Can I afford my food? What's the price of rice compared to what it was yesterday? What are the basic needs that I can put food on my table? These are the questions that Gambian ask. And invariably, when we look at it, we know for a fact that the Gambians are worse off today economically. How many people can afford 3 square meals? As young as we were before the 1994 coup, you go to school, you have breakfast, you have lunch. There was a school feeding program there, which ties into the fact that we even had a board of health, which was primarily concerned with public health concerns, or some of these avoidable diseases were avoided actually. So people are getting worse off. The world economy is changing. Fact, we get that, and we need policies in place that will make sure the impact is not felt so much in the country, which is one reason why Amadou Sane's vehicle policy, we keep touting it, because that saved the government a lot of money, and that could be invested in other areas. So we're not entirely 100% importing everything, not producing anything in the country. So those kinds of policies, tried, tested, have proven that they can yield some income for the country that can be used to bring down inflation and set the country on track. We have implemented those, and it is up to the Gambian people to recognize that this government has failed, and it is time to implement change.
Thank you. Mr. Yang, economy,
Yes.
health, IEC, in 3 minutes, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think the IEC to begin with has to a quite extent dented their own credibility by some of the avoidable errors that they've done in the past and recently during the presidential nomination. And we have had accusations made by Dr. Cisse of CA that Sambujang Jai, according to sources that he said he had, made it very clear that he would ensure CA and other parties are nominated because he had a political alignment. So he said when the time comes, he would reveal, the evidence, to support that. So all of us agree that, these elections, is very contentious, and Gambians have given their all to ensure that their, candidates, are fairly treated and are elected. So it is now, the onus now rests upon the IEC to ensure that those avoidable mistakes do not reoccur, because once they do, they would plunge the whole country into chaos, because nobody would accept, mistake from the IEC. When it comes to health, we need to look at the historical, perspective of where our health system was and how we found it where it is today. If you look at, like they said, during the Jawara era, the Senegalese used to come to the Gambia for treatment. During that time, Gambia and mainland China had an agreement wherein the mainland Chinese would be supplying their own personnel in forms of doctors. They would be bringing their own medication, and then treatment was 100%. But when Jammeh came, he fell out with mainland China and then went into an agreement with Thailand. And, most of those people left. And when they left, their doctors also stopped coming. The medication that they used to give stopped coming. And then Jammeh brought in, Kiban doctors. And most of those Kiban doctors, we know, is like most of them were just trainee doctors, and Kiba wouldn't give Gambia their best doctors. So during that time, Jammeh built more hospitals and health centers, but the equipments were not there, the personnel were not there, and then this led to the slow and gradual crumbling of our health system. And when the coalition government came, into power, they did not immediately invest into the health sector to resuscitate it. Now we have seen, recently Barrow, investing in ambulances, Barrow investing in reforming and uplifting the Francis Small Teaching Hospital. So this is going to be a gradual process that the Barrow government is doing to resuscitate and bring back our health sector into or take it further to where we all want it. And then we have also seen, the stability, the stability of electricity. When it comes to economy, mostly like Natama stated, Gambians are generally not interested in the numbers, but they are interested on their survival. Having 3 daily meals. Okay, the Barrow government is doing a lot in that aspect because it has waived all taxes on importation of basic, commodities such as rice, sugar, and those things. But what the Barrow government needs to do more on the economy is to invest on the production of local produce and services, such as investing more on agriculture. I know that in Chairman.
Now you're talking
I know,
local.
yeah.
Forget about everything outside. Now you're talking.
I know in Chairman, there is a youth program where government is investing on teaching youth on this horticultural farming, like producing ruminants, producing like poultry, and this agro, like orchards, etc. And each of those youths are given $2,000 as stipend every month. So this is not picked up by the media, but government is investing on that. And the other one, which one did you say?
Yeah, just the economy. That's the economy. That's the last bit.
Yeah, that's the economy. So government is investing on this. So here, because we are not producing, things that we consume, such as rice, onions, and those things, but Gambia is producing a lot of tomatoes, for example, if you look at the women garden, but the factories are not there. Government did not invest in processing factories that would use those tomatoes to produce paste, to produce soup, and the mangoes that we get. Sometimes we buy them here in the UK, but government is not investing, in factories, which would produce and juice into mango chunks, etc. Once government invests in these things, then you would see that government, like Tamba said, would impose taxes on anyone imposing anything that we are producing locally. because we have to protect the local market.
We're gonna have to
This
leave
is
it
what
there for
That's
now.
why you should have said all this time, Suleiman Jang. You could have spent an hour
You're
talking
gonna have
about
to
that.
leave it there for now because the next program is almost overdue. So, Mr. Manjang, thank you very much for your time. Mr. Ahmed, thank you and have a nice day. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Samba and Natamas, thank you all very much for your time, energy, and effort. And then have a nice day to you all. Thank you.
All right, thank
Thank you.
All right, cheers. That was a program that we intend to have from Skype or Radio and TV Services Studios, West Yorkshire, Leeds. Right. Thank you all for being there. And then the next program is just well overdue. That's going to be the Gambia Corruption Free with Noha Sise. Noha is with us in studios now at the moment. What we'll do, I'll play a signature tune and then take a leave of you. You can pass the message on to friends and families and then or share the program if you think this program worth sharing, to pass the message on to Gambians to get this message right. Sky Power Radio and TV Services Studios, West Yorkshire, Leeds, Stencil Mount. So long it has been Mustafa Jame who has been behind the scene, and I'm saying thank you all for being there and have a pleasant day ahead of you. Thank you and have a nice day. Cheers.